Ask me anytime.
Keep them right at Patrice's
I
office.
mean, what Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna call to order the Hancock County Commissioners meeting for September 7th, 2022. Let's see.
I'm going to move to approve the agenda as presented with the exception of recognizing Lieutenant Roderick Charette of Maine State Police.
Second the motion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none.
I'm going to move to approve the minutes of the August 23rd special meeting as presented.
Second them. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right. There's some play recognition.
First is Jamie Trader Deeds. I'm going to move to recognize and thank Registry of Deeds Clerk Jamie Trader for her 5 years of service to Hancock County.
Second motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
One of the things.
These Phillips screws.
Yeah. Phillips screws.
Turn it around and look at one.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks for coming, guys. That's why you're all here, right? Hold on, you, Jamie.
All right.
Next up, I'm going to move to recognize Lieutenant Roderick Charette of the Maine State Police in appreciation of his duties and kindness to the citizens of Hancock County.
Second the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
I'd like to say that I'm privileged to have known Rod for several years, worked with him. I'm glad I'm retired now that I understand he's moving on to, we're going to Bangor, Rod,
It's a big road.
the big road,
Taking
the
it,
4-lane highway.
yeah, taking the new interstate, we're rebuilding that. So that's gonna be, Augusta to Sherman and 295 from Gardner.
Huh? Hmm?
Yeah.
Well,
Good
congratulations.
seeing you.
Thank you for your service to Hancock County. We really appreciate it, Rod. You've done a nice job. You're going to be missed, and thank you.
I'm gonna miss this, trust me, so.
And
Thank you, everybody.
and congratulations, I think.
Well, you know, out of all my career choices, this is the one I actually asked for, so we'll see how it goes.
Good luck to you. All right, let's see. John, we've got our update for Art. You just
That's a different site.
just met Mike?
I'll be down. Oh, yeah, we'll set up a meeting.
Good.
Bring me up to speed on everything, but I think I know. How's that? So, quick update, certainly Maine Connectivity Authority, their grant round continues to keep saying October, and they're pretty set on that, so that should be coming out. They did just open up a different grant round, which is planning, so we're gonna reach out to some of these communities that are in that planning stage to make sure they're aware of it. They can go after, look at that money as well. That also, depending on how this evolves, and I know we had a conversation with GWY about utility district that's planning as well, so, if the county decides to go down that road a little bit more, there's actually MCA money that can be.
Is it grant funding in
Grant
October
money, yeah.
as well? In
Yes,
October?
yeah, strictly grant. Yeah, and there's no match on that one, which is good for some of the smaller communities and towns. That'll be good, but still waiting for the actual rules on the infrastructure grant, which is the ones you'll see,
Yeah.
as they come. No, they have not been released yet, so we'll wait to see what's going to be served versus unserved, and what's going to be considered a match, and what are they going to, what are they looking at in projects? So that's coming. Let's see, the Google Fiber still is interested in presenting, and they can remote in on the 20th, if that still works for your
Yeah.
schedule.
Do we expect it to be kind of a similar time frame as their
Yeah, time
previous?
frame wise, I do it in 15 minutes. That works for you.
Yeah.
I'll keep it on there. Calendar. Couple of utility districts will keep going down, down that road, exploring those a little bit more. Let's see, so town-wise, Fox Board had a good conversation with Sue. They're in good shape. Ahead of it, like a lot of things, they were ahead of it there. They are trying to do some Wi-Fi stuff, and different things, but nothing that falls into our qualifications.
So you don't think it would be anything that,
No, we'll take them off it.
so not even in the underserved sections?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, no, she feels it's pretty well served.
Okay.
So we'll take that, adjust our sheet to reflect that.
Okay, great.
RVAC, as you know, is still sitting out there. CCI should be, like this, targeting the end of the year, but as long as they're making progress, we know we're not going to touch that one. Surrey is interesting. They've got a few different providers down there. They're trying to, they've got one small section that will be considered underserved. And so working with them, to try to figure out how that might work. It might have to go to an RFP. If we do, that'll be outside of this commissioner's project. But like they say that because Ellsworth is at the point of ready to go to RFP. So we have a call with them tomorrow. Again, that's outside of this project, but it's included. So there'll be certainly some unserved areas there. As we do that, as we'll see with the survey, different things in the maps that are out there. That may, we may talk about a little bit more time survey. May just be two separate projects. That is the quick update.
This may be a question more for our consultant than you, John, but just off the top of your head, are you aware if ARP funds can be used for a community who's involved in a project that has a match and it comes from the federal government? So we're actually using the ARP to pay their match back to the federal government. Does that sound like a,
I do not know that answer.
okay.
Yeah,
I was asked that by a local official and over above my stripes.
say that.
Yep, so now there's a 20% match and it's a federal government grant. And so you're paying the federal government back with federal money.
Yeah.
Sounds, sounds a little squirrely, but.
Yeah, no, not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to look under the covers on that one a little bit deeper, for sure. Because there will be audits someday. Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
there will be audits.
I'm not sure. Very good. Do an audit. I'm gonna move to accept and file the August report from Mission Broadband as presented.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
All right, thanks, John.
Thank you. See you in a few weeks.
All right, now we're ready for the UT. How's it going?
Morning, Commissioners.
Aye.
At the last meeting, I had given you copies of Washington County's Animal Control Officer Agreement. And then I emailed you copies of Penobscot County's Animal Control Agreement. Since then, I've taken the two and picked out the parts that I liked and the parts that I thought the commissioners would like, and have written the animal control agreement for Hancock County. The Regional Animal Control Committee is meeting tomorrow morning, and they will review that Hancock County draft and pick that apart and see if we can come up with one that the towns can agree with. And then I'll have it back to a revised draft back to the commissioners for your next meeting. The big thing we're kind of wondering about, we're trying to make a list of all of the equipment that each town has, as far as cages and snares and this, that, and the other thing. So we think we're going to be all set when we combine all that equipment. What we are in need of is going to be some kind of a vehicle. But I think that's where that group is right now. I'll have more to report to you next month, next meeting, 2 weeks.
Sheriff, I talked briefly with Millard about this earlier. I told him that you were in the process of trying to acquire new cruisers and that you may have some, you're gonna retire. And so something might be available, we could work out some arrangement to.
Yeah, we can look at some of those, because some of those we had taken, what we projected we might be able to sell them for and show in revenue in next year's budget proposal. So, yeah, we can talk about that.
So there will be something, Millard, that could be available, and we can make that work if there is.
Thank you. Yep. UT budget, I'm waiting right now for the Maine Revenue Service to submit the UT growth factor for what the LD1 limits are. I exchanged emails with the Maine Revenue Service yesterday. It's not done yet, but they expect it by mid-month. So we're on schedule as far as the UT budget. Should have it finalized and ready for the commissioners for the October meeting.
Millard, do you project that you might need more than the LD1 limit would give you? Any reason you need more?
No. In 10 years, I've only gone over the LD1 limit once, and that was when we did the Nicotawas Road.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be under the LD1 limit, all right.
Do you have anything else to report?
That's it, commissioners.
Millard, before you go, Graham Lake being as low as it is right now, I've noticed that gut right there at Fletcher's Landing. I still am curious as to why, with a long arm excavator, we couldn't remove that obstruction and retain the landing where it is now next to the road.
I will check with the guy from Danico, Serco, the guy from Bureau of Parks and Lands. I'll check with him and see if there's anything we can do. The way we left it, they were trying to get a survey done to see exactly what the state owned up there. And it's been all summer, so they should be. It's time to check in again and see where they are.
Do you anticipate landowners would have an issue with removing considerable amount of that obstruction?
I can't imagine why.
I can't either. I don't know why.
It would benefit everybody to be able to get out through there,
Yeah.
especially the landowners inside the gut.
Right.
Yep.
Maybe if you could look into that a little more, and it'd be a great time right now while the lake is as low as it is to,
Yeah.
Sure, state's not.
This would be a good time, if we could dredge it, this would be a good time to do it, because with the lake this low, you could see what you were doing,
Right,
rather than wait until it's under 6 feet of water.
yeah, because no in the state, they'll wait that till then, so. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Millard.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Leroy was questionable whether he'd make it to the meeting. I don't see him there, I think. Okay.
You wanna act on his?
Yeah, so I'm gonna move to accept and file the August report from the airport manager as presented.
Second motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Got your other?
We're on to the next item.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna move to place a legal ad in the local paper seeking RFPs for non-aviation use for parcel PR2 at the corner of Ramp Road and Crusoe Drive.
I'm gonna second the motion, but quite honestly, Paul, I don't understand what we're doing here.
Well, that's the action that the airport manager requested, and,
What's the proposal supposed to be for?
what I don't understand is why something like this would have to go to RFP, because you have a, you know, an entity that, you know, approached the county and developed a plan and did all kinds of legwork. It just doesn't seem fair to the, you know, that party to,
Not finished,
Has to
not
do
finished,
that.
yeah.
and it seems very cumbersome for the county, but my guess is just, you know, my guess is that it's probably something that's required, you know, because of the airport funding and, you know, that's just a guess though. And I'm basing that on the memo, so, I made the motion because that's the action he's requesting, and he must have a good reason to.
This is the same section from
Yes.
the last meeting. right?
Yes,
So the RFP is seeking an applicant who wants to lease a specific parcel of land. So, so basically they're saying we have a particular non-aviation piece of land, and if you'd like to be considered to use that, file a proposal. Is that what he's saying?
yes,
So
formally, you know. We already have the proposal, but I guess he's got to answer an RFP that asked for the proposal. I don't get this. Well, I somewhat get it. But I think this must be some sort of requirement because of the, you know, the way the airport is funded. It's got to be, you know, I don't know, Michael, if you know.
So that was my understanding that there, because of the requirements in the FAA, which I can't point to you specifically, because I haven't looked into it much, but that was my understanding in speaking quickly with Cornell about it and looking at the memo and stuff, that requirements of FAA are that you can't switch that to non-aviation purposes and then just give it to somebody. That it had to be through bidding, public procurement process. But I mean, obviously, Leroy would have to point to the specific.
Yeah, and to me, I'm not comfortable, I'm not comfortable not taking this action, because I think, you know, there's timeline here that we have to adhere to. But I am comfortable with, if we didn't have to do this, you know, Leroy would bring this to our attention before doing it, so. That's why I'm comfortable with taking this action.
It sounds like he has to send it off to the
Yeah.
FAA. So I would call a vote on it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
well, I guess I don't like. I'm okay.
Is it a nay?
Okay, so reluctant A. I just reluctant because I don't like surmising, and unfortunately, we always have Leroy around, and the time we need him the most, he's not here, so.
Well,
You could always change the motion to be conditional that it's required.
Well, I think Paul's right. I think Leroy would not want to go through this process if it
No.
wasn't required. No, I mean, he's been working with a particular entity, and he'd want to fulfill that if he could. So I gotta believe that Mike is right. It's probably required by FAA, and
Yeah, that's.
Let's just do it, get it over with, and see where,
All right. So motion passes.
it could be interesting though, because that could open up other businesses who said, geez, I'd like to have a piece of property.
Yeah, again, my reluctance there is, yeah, I think that's the purpose of it, but you know, this entity's obviously done a lot of legwork and a lot of expense, and I just don't think that it's.
So
But if it's a requirement that's over our head, then I get it.
So would the proposal list like a purchase amount or a lease amount or something like that? I mean, how do you evaluate your RFP? Any idea? Can you imagine?
No. You know, as Leroy, you know, mentioned in the last meeting, they've been working on this and, you know, they've come up with numbers and, you know, that's all part of getting it out of non-aviation use. I think that may be one of the requirements, but again, it's speculation. You know, maybe because it has to come out of airport use, they have to do an RFP to see if there's other airport uses that it could be conducive to,
But you see,
all speculation.
you see, if the sheriff had come to us a month ago and said, I want to buy a armored vehicle, and I've been talking with the distributor, and this particular one will sell us one for 100,000. And then we said, well, okay, but we want to go to bid. Let's put that distributor at a disadvantage because now he's exposed his bid price. You know, it's the same thing that's happened with his property. So it really squirrels the bid process, if that's what this is. Proposal being a bid on, I'd like to have this property, and I'll give you $1,000 more than the guy you've been talking to.
Yeah, I guess I have to have faith in, you know, our airport manager and that you're gonna do the right
I don't
thing
remember
and
at the last meeting if there was any details as to
Oh, it's the
financial
amount.
details. It's hard to remember if there was any financial
I don't
details.
either. Well, that's right. We're just gonna have to trust that Leroy
Yeah.
understands this a lot better than we do, I guess.
Don't give the sheriff any ideas about.
Too late.
yeah. So did we vote on that?
Yes.
Okay,
Better correct. We have 2.5 votes in favor.
okay, the bumper turret for Rescue Two. I'm gonna move to purchase a bumper turret for Rescue Two from Company Two Fire for $9,000 plus freight from account 40-20-200 as recommended.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. All right.
Sorry to be so slow turning the pages here. There.
Any highlights you want to mention on your report?
I just ask if you have any questions about anything that I've prepared. Submitted.
As far as the monthly report, I don't. I'm gonna move to accept and file the August report from the EMA director as presented.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
All right, so your request for approval of the administrative assistant, so.
I think we understand this issue of sharing, but, or do we? And we talked about the concept, but does this really need to be refined? I mean, tell us, what have you done to this point?
So EMA for years historically had approximately 20-hour per week administrative assistant. And upon Helen Kazur's retirement after 12 years of service, we were able to hire internally from another department, someone to fill that part-time role. That individual excelled at the tasks and did an excellent job. Another department in the county expressed interest in having someone with similar capabilities and skills in a part-time capacity. That was really the genesis of sharing an individual between the departments. And that arrangement was between EMA and the Registry of Deeds. And it worked quite well, administratively and practically with respect to sharing. And under that arrangement, the individual spent 3 days a week in the Registry of Deeds and 2 days a week in EMA, and that satisfied both departments' needs. Upon that person's departure from our employment back in June, I didn't pursue filling the position at that time, either part-time or full-time, just because I would have been competing with our own finance department, trying to recruit an individual with the same skills. So I figured, well, that's clearly the priority, and just Monica and I coordinated and just deferred at that time. It just made sense. Now that the finance office's position has been filled more than adequately, I figured the time is right to now go back, and it's been, since June, so sometime since I've had someone in that capacity. The function, and I shared job descriptions and so on, the function of this person is not to answer the phone. It really is to help manage our finances, which, as you know, we are in 3 different funding cycles, between the county, state budget calendar and the federal calendar schedule. 3 different, 1 calendar year, 2 different fiscal years, the variety of state and federal grants that we have, all the different programs, so all the different agencies that we're administering. That is really the key role and the key function. The other county department that shares in those same needs and responsibilities is the airport, which has also gone vacant for a considerable amount of time. So Leroy and I got to speak, and I wish you were on with us. But we coordinated between ourselves and just said, wouldn't it be nice if we had a person we could share with the same skill sets that would be a full-time county employee again, and that would, we'd be able to retain through the compensation and the benefits and so on, and be able to share that individual to accomplish what it is we both need. So that's the narrative piece.
So right now, we're really looking to advertise, is that right? Or,
That would be the next step, yes, would be to advertise for a person with those skills.
I guess this step, as I understand, is just to see if, we support it.
Well, I think that is the next step, because we'll have to create this position. This is a new position. They've had 2 part-times, but we're now talking about full-time with benefits.
Commissioner, excuse me, no, the most recent was a full-time employee shared between 2 departments.
Between you and registry,
That's correct.
and that was full-time?
Yes, so this is repeating.
But you're changing now to sharing that with the airport instead of registry.
That's correct, yes.
I'd be more receptive to that anyways, knowing that the airport hasn't had that.
Well, and really that it's somebody that helped, because Monica, you're tied in there too. It would
Oh,
be
yeah.
somebody that helped.
It would provide some relief to our finance department if they had support in each of those departments to help with monthly reporting and submission of documents to the FAA.
When's the last time the airport had part-time, did they have?
It was before mine.
They did,
That's what I
and
thought.
I don't know the timeline, I apologize.
Three years ago.
Yes. So now, his needs were consolidated into the finance office.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that went by the wayside. So, Commissioner, that's exactly what I envisioned, is to have, a trio super user, someone who, could seamlessly help, not just the airport and EMA, but another department, if there were a need, facilities, for example, or even assist upstairs if there were a temporary need, for audits or whatever.
So did we have a job description for this full-time person before?
Oh, we did, yes.
We do?
It was the same responsibility as part-time, just expanded between the airport and the EMA. and we both-
What grade and pay and all that? We don't have that. We don't have a copy of that, do we?
I don't know what he's,
I see the airport's part-time. Yes. But I don't see the full-time.
So no, there is no job description that exists
For
between,
this,
for this one, right, between EMA and the airport.
What,
that would sort of be a next step as.
yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
As
so
I,
this is,
I'm sorry.
Well, that's because, the next step would be to establish this position, because we're gonna have to establish a grade, the compensation for that, and articulate the job qualifications. What was Mary, what grade was Mary, do you remember?
9H, I think it is, I'm not.
She's a 9, no, grade 9?
Yes,
And that's what you're proposing for this person as well? And you're looking at someone with similar qualifications
That's correct.
Mary had?
We had to make it seamless. I believe it was noted.
But again, I think you're here just
Okay.
for us to approve the concept of this and
That's correct. And it worked quite well the last time and
Yeah.
it's something that would be a great utility and benefit, not just to my agency in the airport, but to the county overall, I think.
yeah, and this isn't a stretch of our budget because we were doing this just with different departments.
That's
Is
correct.
that fair?
Yes, and I've unused salary from this year, since it's been vacant, and as does the airport.
Okay.
Airports maintain that part-time salary budget amount?
Each department, so deeds and EMA both contributed salary and benefit.
But if you're gonna share this with the airport, are they able to fund it for
That's
the
correct.
balance of
Yes.
this year? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think it's a twofold thing. I mean, if we're going to allow him to advertise for a position, I think the other part of that is to develop that job description,
Yeah, before,
articulating, where he's gonna work, the pay rate,
Right.
job qualifications, so on.
So just come back with the description, pay rate, everything all tied up.
And I have that in draft form. I'm happy to finalize that. And as far as location, I am truly indifferent. Both Leroy and I say that person could sit downstairs in my office, or I'm comfortable with that person spend the time at the airport, or actually split it midweek between us, or we work out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
We both have the physical location for this person.
We do, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So as long as the work's getting
I
done,
think that's an operational issue you two.
but really, before he can advertise, he's gotta do these other things, otherwise he
Yeah.
doesn't know what he's advertising for, so. it
That's
makes
what I'm saying.
perfect sense.
As John said, I think he needs to articulate that job description, get that back to us, we'll approve it so that you can go out to seek applications.
So how about this? I'm gonna move to approve the concept of hiring an administrative assistant to be shared between EMA and the airport.
And I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
thank you.
All right, now we've got RFQ.
I don't know if you want to introduce it or if I can.
Certainly. So the present Hancock County Mitigation Plan 2018 is set to expire in April of 23. I have an obligation to both the federal and state agencies to see this plan renewed, using the services of a professional planner. My preference has always been, my dream has always been to, shop locally, do business locally, and make use of, let's say, the Hancock County Planning Commission to do this. The best analogy I can give you is the equivalent of at the municipal level comprehensive plan. Except this takes place on behalf of the county. So I'd like to, the process is that we have an RFQ that's issued, published, and so on, and then enter into a contract with a qualified planner. My interest, as I'm sure is yours, is to hire someone who has knowledge and background in Hancock County and someone who has the requisite understanding of what the risks and hazards and vulnerabilities are here in Hancock County, and then engage that person to be able to perform this planning on our behalf. The last step of the process is that after the plan is written, it's submitted to the state where it is reviewed, edited numerous times, and then finally goes to FEMA, the federal government, where they do the same thing. Another round, and then what should be the last step of the process is it is ratified by all 37 jurisdictions here in Hancock County. So each of the towns, and then you on behalf of the unorganized territory and the county as a whole. So in the past, this will be my third round of this. In the past, I've come to you first and asked you to ratify it. for the county, because then that sets the precedent and makes it far easier to get the individual towns.
How does that process take, out of curiosity, that you just described?
From now until you.
That's like, whew, all right.
Okay, so I'm gonna move to approve the RFQ for hazard mitigation planning services and place a legal ad in the local newspaper seeking RFQs for hazard mitigation planning services.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
How's it going?
Good morning.
All right, what do you got for us today?
Just one quick thing. Just trying to clean up county payroll, administratively removed from the county payroll, Tricia Carey, Rebecca Long, and Encino Polo, we know the bench.
So moved.
Second.
And I have his last name in there. I have had a hard time pronouncing. I practiced, but
Corsiafolo.
Okay,
Corsiafolo.
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Sheriff?
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
So I sent you a postal memo, and I believe Cornell sent you the county policy that I was referring to, or at least I believe it. I think I tried to explain out the issue, and I'm hoping that you'll revisit that policy that was written in 2013, I believe, the last time it was visited.
Do you know what they did in 13 that revised it? Do you know what that was?
I think they just continued what it was in 11. I didn't see a lot of changes in it, but basically, my recollection is that's when the county was self-funding their health insurance plan, which made sense at that time with the position they took, but with regards to the specific employee that I spoke of in the memo, that's still a continuing issue as of this morning. In fact, that he became eligible on September 1st, but there was an error in the paperwork. So he still isn't covered. This puts considerable risk and liability, not only on the employee, but the county. So I'm hoping we can make a better plan to move forward with it.
So, and as I didn't mean to interrupt you, but as I read all of this, it looks like I didn't see a reason for this to be in this policy. At first, I was thinking it must be something that's coming down from the insurance company. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Is my read correct?
My understanding from conversation with Cornell is the insurance company is simply following the county policy. So if you make those changes and submit them to the insurance company, they will follow your direction.
And that's how I read this. I just want to make sure I was correct.
Yep, that's my understanding.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
And there's really no good reason that I can come up with that this is in this policy other than probably that's the way it was done before.
Well, one, I don't know how good it is, but one reason is the amount of paperwork it takes to get these people insured and not wanting to go through that for somebody who only stays a week and decides they don't want the job. And this isn't uncommon. I mean, this is a very standard policy amongst all, a lot of employers to have a waiting period before you're covered. I'm not sure what the liability is, Pat, for not insuring somebody for the first month.
Well, so for this case I spoke of in particular, I mean, this gentleman's been without coverage for over 60 days now. And this is not what, if you reflect back on my memo, this is not what he was told upon his hiring. So that's why I'm getting back to liability. That's why I asked either we change the policy or there's a clearer directive through HR that this is what they are so that they know, but it also needs to come down to the departments so that as we're recruiting, talking to these folks, it makes a difference on when the hire date is and also them leaving their previous employer.
Yeah, so I mean, the problem here really is that it sounds like not everybody was communicating what this policy was, because probably didn't know it. Quite honestly, not sure it makes sense, so, I mean, so, is there, Michael, is there any reason that this, I mean, you've seen what's done in other government institutions as
I've seen it both ways.
You
I
have,
really
okay.
have. MMA has a waiting period with theirs as well, but they also allow the entity to send them a letter saying they waived that waiting period under certain circumstances. I mean, that's nothing that I've seen been discussed with our provider, so I mean, but at the end of the day, even with paperwork and other stuff, as soon as somebody's hired,
still
and I know from
done.
this week, I mean, I got a bunch of paperwork and I filled it out right away, and if I leave tomorrow, I mean, she's already submitted it, and I've already done it. So I don't know if that's gonna impact anything beyond maybe the initial employee that shows up for a day or two and leaves, but.
But you don't see any reason not to do this or to stick to this policy or,
I'm
to me,
not,
I'm ambivalent. I get the problem.
I'm not aware of any drawback. Usually it would be, we would be complying with the requirement of the insurance company. Obviously, that issue's been addressed, so. I don't see it, but maybe I'm missing something.
Monica, do you see a downside of changing this?
No, other than getting them in the system soon enough and getting the withholding set up in a timely manner so that we're paying for their policy in a timely manner.
So if a new employee comes along, you're gonna sign them up fairly soon within that 30 days so that it kicks in and everything's in gear. It's a 30-day time, correct?
Right, right.
Now, if it became effective on the first day of hire, it would still take several days to get that paperwork in motion, wouldn't it?
But that's not what's being advocated
They can
here.
only do it at the first of the month, am I right? Isn't that what they were saying?
Yeah, I processed Michael's paperwork because he started technically September 1st. So his coverage is going to start October 1st. It's 30 days.
What about coverage always starting the first day of the month? Is that a,
Yeah, it seems like John, who is what we're talking about, he started on the 9th. So that put him beyond the beginning of the month, they're saying. So that's why they weren't covering him until it would actually be 30 days beyond. But because Michael started on the 1st, his 30 days will be within that.
well, I don't
First
understand.
week.
If we changed and agreed with Pat, it still wouldn't be effective until the first of the next month after the hire date, correct?
Right, so say we had somebody come in on the 20th of the month, the way it sits now, like John had to wait more than that 30 days, but if we hired somebody with their starting date on the 20th, I say 30 days from there should be the 20th of the following month.
But who decided it couldn't take effect until the first, us or the insurance company?
I think it was us, because the way my interchange, and Pat was copied on, Jessica, who was our contact at Allegiant, she said that this is the way the county policy is, and she was just going with that. And that's why John's coverage started later.
Yeah, as you read this, what's in policy right now, what you've just explained
Mhm.
is how it should be.
Right.
What Pat is, or the chief deputy, I'm sorry, is advocating, well, I'm not sure he's advocating, but what's on the table here is that, we'll give a couple of examples. Somebody starts on the 1st of September, October 1st, they're eligible. They start on the 20th of September, October 1st, they're eligible, reading this policy.
No, that's not what the
No,
policy says.
Well,
No, not the policy, the proposal.
But if we change.
Right, and I can agree to that, no matter
Yeah.
what day they start, on the first of the following month, they become effective.
Right,
That's
that would make
And you can
more
accept that,
sense.
Pat?
Absolutely.
That's what he's advocating.
Yeah, that's what it's.
Okay, so I'm gonna make this motion, just so that I'm gonna move to amend the health and major medical insurance policy to cover new employees on the 1st of the month following their date of hire.
Second that motion.
All those in favor?
And then,
And all excuse me, all you'd have to do is remove 30 days and put the date of
that's
employment,
what this,
following the date of employment. Michael, right?
Yeah.
And that gives you what you want to do, yeah.
so, and then this is a policy that can be revised when, if this becomes cumbersome in any way, my guess would be that our administrator would say, hey, this isn't working. And it needs to be changed, but I understand how this came up. That language is not the best. I think what we've done makes more sense.
But what intrigues me is why nobody has raised this issue before today.
I think we've just been fortunate, honestly, that I think we've hired much younger, at least in our department, much younger staff. Hasn't been an issue. This particular person had a need and the need to be fulfilled, it wasn't there. So I
The
think,
need for what, insurance?
Yeah.
But even still, if he was hired on the 15th, he'd still have to wait 2 weeks before he gets coverage, right?
absolutely.
We've reduced his need. He's gonna have an unmet need for,
Yeah, they
and I don't know what day he got
they
hired.
have to understand that there's going to be a window there where they may need a COBRA from their previous employer.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So he was hired on July 9th. So with your new policy, August 1st, he would have been eligible for insurance, which is what was explained to him, which had a bearing on his timing for his departure from his previous job to here, so he's covered. But under this policy, having to wait the 30 days and then another one, here we are September 6th, whatever day we are in September.
So has he done his paperwork, Monica, for insurance?
Oh, he did that right away.
So can we
This-
cover him immediately?
This coverage should have started.
You have an email address this morning from John about an issue that needs to be
Yeah.
corrected. You probably just haven't seen it yet, but
Okay.
What you say he was hired, what day was his hire day? 9th of,
The 9th of July.
that's July.
yeah, so it wouldn't go into effect until the 9th of July.
September 1st.
Right, September 1st is what they told me.
Okay, so he is covered now.
No, because there's a problem with the paperwork. So he called on the 1st or 2nd, whatever the day was, so that he could utilize his insurance, and there's a problem with a zip code or something to that effect.
Oh, well, I mean, something's gotta be straightened out,
Exactly.
but that's nothing to do with a policy. It's just,
No.
just an over, yeah, okay.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I think we've corrected the issue.
Yeah, if we did it, we'll revisit it. If it did something, if it doesn't work, we'll revisit it. But
Thanks, Ken. Thank you. Sheriff?
Good morning. First, I'd like to welcome Town Administrator. I look forward to working with you. And I'd like to acknowledge to the board that it was a pleasure to work with Cornell when he was here. He truly a professional and was very, very helpful. So thank you for that transition. We look forward to going ahead here. The second thing I have on our agenda is discussion of a school resource officer. And I sent you an email, hopefully explained why I wanted to have this discussion again today. I met with, I had a conversation with Sheriff Morton because he is working to get a school resource officer in Orrington, which is in the same school district as Dedham. And I later met with the superintendent of schools and the principal in Dedham, and there was a substantial difference in the cost getting started. And Sheriff Morton explained to me what some of the differences were. He was going to assign to start with a used vehicle. I don't have one. Those types of things. So what I'm asking, proposing is if the commissioners would consider, we can lower this cost tremendously without harming the county dollars and cents wise by splitting some of these funds up over a 3-year period, because I will not enter into an agreement with Dedham for less than 3 years. So we're gonna hold them to the 3 years. So what my proposal is, instead of them having to take a bite the first year of over $82,000 in costs for buying cruisers, uniforms, firearms, all those types of things, if we split that over a 3-year period, that would be $27,000 roughly that we would bill the town of Dedham. And that's going to get that cost down pretty comparable to what it is in Orrington. And the difference there are just salaries, really the difference in the salaries. So I'm asking if the commissioners would have a problem that if I drop that MOU that we finance those costs, the initial startup costs, over a 3-year period.
So the school is offering to pay the full cost of salary and all the equipment,
Yeah,
100% of the cost?
yeah. Yeah, and excuse me, the superintendent said that this in no way jeopardizes the project. If the commissioners don't agree with going over this for 3 years, it doesn't jeopardize the proposal, but what it does is gets the cost a little closer to 2 communities who are in the same school district, so that one person in Dedham won't say, gee whiz, why are we paying this big bite here when Arlington is only paying this? This is gonna get those figures down a little closer to each other, and a little easier for everybody.
Well, the way, so the 82 is the 67 and the 14.5.
Correct.
0, okay, so I would contend that that's better budgeting practice to do it that way than it is, because otherwise what we would have done is we would have had a big, not this year, and then, I mean, we can't charge for things that we're not doing, and then the next year we're gonna way down.
Right.
Because this stuff, so I would contend that that's better budgeting practice. So, one of my questions prior to this memo was gonna be, what's the life of these assets? And we should be spreading them out over the time, the life of the asset. But I think your proposal makes more sense because it's spread out over the time of the proposal. So maybe that, we may discover in the following year that was too much or wasn't enough, or, excuse me, the following contract. So this makes perfect sense to me. My last comment is that the sheriff needs to maintain the flexibility to pull that deputy, in times of emergencies and vacations. And I mean, to me, that has to be your sole discretion because he is your employee, just like, any of the other contractors you have.
That's
Some of the contracts you have.
that's part of the conversation I had with the superintendent and the principal is that is our employee. They are bound by our policies. They do have policies at the school that they will have to observe, but the overriding, they abide by the policies of the Hancock County Sheriff's Office. They're not there to discipline students. If they see a situation, say 2 students are fighting and arguing, it's the resource officer's responsibility to break it up and take them to either the principal or whoever's in charge of that, all of those types of things. So-
Unless there's some crime that's committed. where-
Exactly,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
If it's a criminal offense, then you would address it that
Yeah.
way, but, 2 kids pushing and shoving on the playground,
Yeah.
that's,
No.
that's a whole different situation. But what we could also do with this 3-year proposal, the 4th year, when we renew that contract, we can still keep that $27,000 and start putting that into a reserve, so when we replace that car. So I think that's where you're going with that, answer, Commissioner.
Yeah, that's exactly why I said that was better budgeting practice.
And we've had this conversation with several of the departments. We have been a victim of prices not going, budgets not inching up each time. And now we're trying to dig out of big holes, and when you do that, you've got these big spikes, and this will help eliminate
No,
that.
I think, so, I've talked enough. I'm gonna move to authorize the sheriff to prepare an MOU with the Dedham School Department for a school resource officer based on the costs outlined in his August 23rd, 22 proposal and amortize the equipment costs over the 3-year agreement period.
I'll second it.
To me, the,
Well,
me,
I'm not gonna look a gift horse in their mouth. And if they're willing to pay the full cost of this, but 2 issues I'm somewhat concerned about. The first one is who owns the equipment?
We do.
we do.
How do you know that? How do we know that?
Because that will be in the MOU. We retain, if for some reason, 90 days into this, they say, heck, we're not gonna do that. That's all us. That's our cruiser, that's our firearm, that's our uniforms, everything.
I can see that because we got the considerable amount of down payment on it, but at the end of 3 years, they decide not to renew. They've paid the full cost of that equipment and cruiser and whatnot, and I still wonder if we can even write into an agreement that you don't own that, even though you paid for it.
Well, how's
Yeah.
it work now with, Stone, like a.
Town contract.
We have with Stonington,
Because
right?
there's no equipment cost built into those. Those are those are equipment, gas. Those. The other problem I have too is that the day comes when they're saying, you're using this guy way too much. That, we're paying 12 months of his salary and whatnot, and we'd like to get more of his time. And a dispute arises because we're not contributing any money towards his salary, even though we're using, hopefully, we're gonna be using him in the summer, we're gonna use him on, on
Snow days,
snow
vacation.
days, vacation, whatever, whatnot. So I'm going to vote for the motion, but I still have reservations that we shouldn't be contributing something towards this to avoid the issue of who owns the property and the fact that we're going to use this guy for our business when at certain times. So
To me, the MOU will
We'll
clarify
outline all those things. Sure.
and
Well, and to me, this is not, groundbreaking precedent here. This is how it's pretty much done everywhere. There's a few differences, but this is, the MOU will reflect a charge of a certain amount for in support of these things. First of all, I can't imagine that the school district wants to own any of this stuff. And, especially because he's a deputy of the county, I don't know, I don't have those worries. It's all gonna be in the MOU. I think you have ample examples of MOUs that
I have
work.
several now, and I'll also get Penobscot counties when they draw theirs up and look at theirs.
Yeah, and I know, in town communities, in towns where they have, the school district and the town are, from the same pot of tax, pool of tax money, things are done a little differently, but they're done pretty close to this, so that the amounts are in the right budget. So I think this is a great thing for the county, and I think both parties win here. And if this were, and if another community comes forward, this is fair to the communities that aren't using your services. So that's why I like this.
And when that MOU was drawn up, Commissioner, I certainly did it to you to see if that, you folks, to see if you see any bugs or anything. I'll get it to our administrator and have him look at it and see if there's any bugs in it. I mean, it's not something I'm gonna go down this afternoon and say, okay, this is what we're gonna do. This is obviously taking some time to look at other MOUs and see what's already in them, why we create the wheel.
Yeah, well, and this is an instance where, communities like Bar Harbor or Ellsworth who have their own school resource officer, they're not funding this. This is being funded, that's why it's set up like this. It's fair to everybody.
Yep. I have Waldo counties, I got hold of Sheriff Tracton, he sent me his. They have a SRO in Mount View High School in Thorndike. So
the only thing I was kind of curious about a little bit is, we're talking about the vehicle. So is there a way for you to look at your fleet that you have and make it so that to me, this is a vehicle that's gonna have like some of the lowest mileage, I would think, of all the officers, right? Because a good portion of the time it's gonna be in school.
Yeah.
Sitting there. So I don't know, I'm just kind of wondering if, when you're looking at all the vehicles, like how you can try to coordinate something where whether it's a higher mileage vehicle that person's getting assigned.
We'll look at whatever we're going to either sell or trade and see if there's something good in there. We just had a discussion, excuse me, about having a dog officer, someone taking care of the dogs. And I just whispered to Chief Kane saying, hey, look, we've got one of our dog officers that's in a car that we had replaced. It's got a lot of mileage on it. So we could look at that. It's already got a kennel in it. It's got a dog kennel in it. So if you were going to do something with the animal control, we might be able to work some kind of deal with this tall mileage vehicle, which is already equipped to handle dogs. It could be utilized, so.
Yeah, I don't think that anything in here marries the chief to any specific piece of equipment. In other words, because we're doing this, it must be a new vehicle, or it must be a new gun, this is just, I think this protects everybody. And allows the chief and, excuse me, the sheriff and the school some flexibility to make this work.
Scott, I think another issue that needs to be articulated is the county's philosophy on what our primary mission is. And if that is a regular patrol force, for countywide service, as opposed to specific, town contracts, drug enforcement, school resource. Because my point here is that if that staffing pool gets so bad that we have to, that we're looking at a reduction in our regular patrol staff, I'd like to see that our mission says that some of these select enforcements that we're doing is going to have to go by the wayside so that we can keep a minimum staffing in a regular patrol division. And so at some point, if your regular patrol staffing gets below that minimum staffing level, and you have to look at your specialized details, somebody's going to take a hit. And I'd like to know that the school resource or the school administrator's office understands that this may be a contract for service, but it's not a contract we have to complete if we don't have enough staffing to do this.
Yeah, well aware of that, and your concerns that you just shared, concerns that I shared with communities that we have town contracts with. We say, okay, we're signing this agreement, but and we're short a person, if we cannot feel our primary function is to supply law enforcement. Anything above and beyond that is, I guess, a luxury or a specialty, however you want to classify it.
Whether it's in the contract or the MOU, that somehow it's articulated that this contract is going to be null and void if your minimum staffing level in your regular patrol division falls below this.
And we know how critical that is with what's going on with the state police. I assume you know that the colonel is retiring at the end of the month. So there will be some more movement there. They've already started some movement. Lieutenant Charette is going to be patrolling half the state on the interstate. So who knows what's going to go on?
Did he say Sherman to what?
Augusta.
What happened to Sherman to Holt?
I think Troop F is handling that, is my understanding.
So there really is only one Troop I, which is Sherman to Augusta.
Sherman to Augusta, and then 295 from Augusta down to Walton.
But it's part of I.
It's considered part of what this detail, or what he's going to be, the lieutenant of that troop. Yes.
So, to address that concern, this is no different than a town contract.
No,
And, if we can't fulfill our end of the bargain, they don't pay.
No.
And if they can't, again, I truly think this is a win-win that addresses a lot of these.
All right, let's call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
thank you, gentlemen. That would be a big relief for them. Last thing that I have actually is a request for approval for Deputy Justin Burnett to go from part-time deputy to a full-time deputy effective September 10, step 12A, $23.84 out of E10-01-130, and that is backfilling the position where Deputy Lord deals with the police department. So that's all in the budget. Actually, we'll save some money because this is step one, and Deputy Lord was much further up on the pay scale.
So,
How was it? Not good. The only hesitancy I had was I'd like to see this say promoted so that we're not, we don't make it appear that we created a position and we didn't seek applications that were promoting people within. So the records could simply reflect that.
so you'd rather the motion is moved to
Yes.
promote?
Yeah, that's always been
To
our
hire.
tradition, always been the tradition, that we call it a promotion when we're going from part-time to full-time, so that.
Does that create any? Okay, so, I'll reread it. It's moved to promote Justin Burnett of Penobscot as to a full-time deputy effective September 10, 2022, step 12A, 2384, out of account E1001-130.
And I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
They should come to us with. We might. Have you,
I haven't received.
All right, Dennis.
You know him.
I don't own them, but I.
You've never met him. You should reach out.
Morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
All right.
Very, a simple issue this morning. We haven't talked about the parking garage very often, but, you see the memo and the reasoning.
How about, I'm gonna move to accept and file your August report, as presented, because you're jumping.
Oh, that's right, yeah, oh, okay, sure.
That are, and
That's perfectly fine.
And I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Okay, so,
Aye.
sorry, Dennis, I just didn't
Thank
want
you.
to go back.
No trouble. And so you see, we've got a parking spot that the marshals really don't use out there in the general lot, so by the DAs. And we have big crowds in here, and that spot sits empty. And none of them park there. So their suggestion is to move the spot over to where the first guy that arrives here parks beside the registrar probate spot out there, and move that to this location, which he occupies anyway, and then we free up a spot out in the lot.
So that's your recommendations. It sounds like a no-brainer.
Yes, yeah, okay, the commission decides all parking issues.
I'm gonna move to move the designated parking space for the marshal to a space in the parking garage as requested and recommended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And just to add, I don't, it seems like I have a spot out there that I use during these meetings, and that's it. So I would hope that, that gets used other times. I mean, I don't even need a spot. I guess that's just tradition, but, I get here early enough that I could find my own
Yeah,
spot,
but other times you might not have the luxury of coming early, and it can be, we've had times when it's been.
Well,
it hasn't.
I have an agreement with one of the marshals that he knows when I'm coming and uses my spot. If I come in unannounced, I'll find a place if he's in it. So, I mean,
I feel the same way, so,
Okay,
you're never gonna upset me with.
okay, well, I'll happily, with your permission, recommend anyone make use of it. I feel the same way. I think it's, we can manage this. In fact, once was the policy that we had signs on standards that we brought out on meeting day. But the problem was,
Yeah, somebody's gotta do that work.
well, so not only that, but it can sometimes, people are already here and parked there, and you gotta call them, and they move. Or you don't know who they are, or they reported for jail Saturday, Monday night, they get left their car there. So it was decided to go down this route, probably 6-7 years ago, I think.
Well, I'm sure it's working, but I was just gonna say.
Understood, we'll build a little flexibility in there. Yeah, sounds good. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I just figured with all these benefits we get, we can give up that one. Not.
Good morning.
I'm gonna move to accept and file August report from the RCC director as presented.
Second.
I didn't mean to step on you, but if you had something to add,
Just that it's been pretty busy this last month. Again, the incidents have been very complicated, and days have been full of multiple incidents that are pretty large scale in a few cases with the reduced staffing, and there's been pretty tough. I've been filling in as the third dispatcher quite often. A couple nights, last week I came back to work because they were getting slammed with numerous incidents. On a lot of traction on our open position, although I do have one candidate that's pretty experienced, so hopefully we'll give at least another position to hold here.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we've got the dispatch chairs that we're going to be paying through the ARP funds.
That's the request. These chairs that, the last batch that we bought about 12 years ago, they've been very popular. They're very ergonomic. There's someone sitting in those chairs pretty much 24 hours a day. They're now out of warranty, 2 out of the 3, well, actually 2 out of the 3 out of warranty, and then the third one does not have the service tag on it, so they won't honor the warranty. And they're very expensive to repair. The last repair that we attempted to have done to simply replace a screw was quoted at about $400. I paid $19 and got the part and did it ourselves, but it was an easy fix. They have pretty complicated mechanisms that are beyond our ability to repair. So we're hoping to get some new chairs. They did last quite a long time. There was one other vendor, but it was an online company and everything was done online. And if you wanted to repair them, you had to ship the chair in its entirety to them, which takes the chair out of service. And they had bad reviews on the internet, so I passed that.
So I'm gonna move to approve the purchase of 3 chairs from Creative Office Resources for $3,948.99, funded from the ARPA account.
Second, for discussion, how do we avoid bidding this out, Bob?
I think because my explanation, I guess, would be as a sole source, is that with the experience that we've had, and they are here in the state, there were a couple of the companies out there that had chairs, but they were nowhere near the quality. We looked at them from other, like the NINA conference, they have a vendor set up, and we looked at a lot of their chairs, and they're just not the same standard as these. I think that would have been my only real, and just past history with them. And they can continue to repair the chairs that we have if we need to do that. Is that my only real justification?
Well, I think it's important that we go on record as accepting his recommendation of sole source, and that's part of the motion, Paul.
Yeah. So how about this? Move to approve the purchase of 3 chairs from Creative Office Resources as a sole source as recommended for the amount that coming from the ARP.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, and then I have a couple of questions, and they're not meant to jeopardize this in any. What's the useful life of these chairs? I mean, you've got 12 years.
So these chairs are warranted for 12 years.
Okay,
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that we went with those in the beginning. Renee bought those. We thought she was out of her mind when she bought these chairs back in 2010 for, at that time, $800 a piece. But they have been, worth their weight in gold. The next closest company that carries those chairs is in New York State, which they would not come here to fix. And we've had little issues with them over the years, and within a couple of days, they're up and fixing them, and they're back in business. And they've been, they're very ergonomic. You're sitting there for 12 hours, and it's basically a fine mesh seat, so you're not stewing in your sweat for 12 hours. And they've been and the staff really like them, and they're very comfortable.
And the reason I asked that question is, so they're warranted for 12 years, so the life is 12 years. We should set up, a CIP for this. I mean, we're lucky that this is coming out of ARPA funds, but this should be reflected. I mean, that's an expense. You wear, 1/12 every year. And this, so that, you're not having to come,
I don't disagree.
yeah, to me, that's what should be done here. And that should start the year following. We're buying them this year. Next year in the budget should be 1/12 of that, it probably should have a growth factor in there.
Yeah.
But to me, this is something that we know we're gonna need to do in 12 years.
Don't disagree.
Put it into the budget. All right, all those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Thank you.
thank you. I'm gonna move to approve the monthly bills and warrants as presented.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, let's take a break. Have a 10-minute break. All right, bring us back into session. All right. Looks like it's budget time. And commissioners first.
Accepted it. No discussion.
We're doing revenue.
Yeah, revenue. Same.
Is, so, I'm not sure I understood this last year. What is that? Revenue transfer?
I apologize, I don't have the revenue page for the commissioners, so I,
Just says it is,
Would it help if I gave it to you or? I mean, it's not a big, I just don't know what it is.
reserve transfers.
Well, 2 years ago, there was something in the commissioner's budget that we had been salting money away from. So they went into the equity account and transferred money from that into the account to cover that cost. So can't tell you what that was now, but
Okay, so
it came,
it's zero this year. Okay, now I,
yeah, we have nothing that we want.
okay. Thank you.
So, you know, just thinking about this too, I'm going to put this, I don't see any reason to notate something like this if we didn't do it last year, even though we done it in the 5-year period, but this is almost like a one, I don't know where these 10,500 and 20,000,
are you on the expense now?
no, the reserve transfer.
Oh,
It just showed, it's just a spreadsheet, sure, because
oh,
what it does is
that I do have.
it shows the actual for 2021. And then it shows a budgeted average and then an actual average, which really aren't.
I think it was Cornell that submitted this.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is, this kind of actual doesn't mean a thing,
Yeah.
because it's unique to every year, you know, okay.
Okay. I'm not gonna, not sure that my colleagues are gonna appreciate this comment. So I'm gonna own it. But it's, I didn't realize that when we were doing that 7% COLA thing, which made sense for everybody, you know, because that's what was in the union, that would have actually affect the commissioner's salaries. I just didn't think about that. I would be for leaving them as it is, but probably not going to be a very popular comment.
Well, 2 years ago, we did do that. Last year, we took our raise, you know,
Yeah,
but it's really insignificant. I mean, truth of the matter is, it's
well, it's,
$750, is that what it is?
oh, I was looking at the wrong column here, yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's, yeah, it's a $2,000 in aggregate expense. Okay, I was looking at the budgeted average here. That's why that hit me.
Oh, we thought it was like a couple grand for the commission.
Yeah, I thought it was more like $5,000. But in fact, it is not.
I second that. 65 grand.
That's what I was bucking, was $5,000. That's my mistake.
Chair wants 5 grand raise retroactive to 2022.
I mean, I understand why it's done now that I'm looking at the right column, it's just so that it doesn't get out of whack.
Yep.
Uh,
I think, I'd like to go down and look, that Deputy Administrator Mike, now, did you have any, did you work with Cornell on this, any of this?
Not much.
Okay, so
and
that's,
actually,
that's the same amount as 22, gentlemen. And I'm not sure we're ready to finalize that figure yet. I mean, as I understand it, Mike is going to be tasked with finding a deputy, correct?
That was my understanding.
You understand that to be the case?
Yeah.
And I think Mike ought to have an opportunity, whatnot, to decide, or at least come back to us with a proposal on what this deputy is going to be responsible for and what that pay grade should be commensurate with those responsibilities. So Cornell may have put that in because it's the same amount just as a placeholder. I don't know, because I don't know if Cornell was really suggesting that we keep that at 73.
The copy I'm looking at does have a cross through it, but it does reflect a 7%. So maybe I don't have an updated.
Maybe you got the
What's your
update. We
dollar
don't.
amount that you have?
I have 78,110 for 2023 for that position.
we have 73.
You got something we don't have.
Well, no, I think this is newer than what you
Yeah, I
have.
think so.
Yeah,
Why would
I
our
think
figure be?
Because mine has a cross through it, I think there was a newer version.
Yeah, because I put all new ones in the book.
Yeah, but why would the new ones be without the 7%?
I don't know if Cornell had discussion.
so,
Well, back to my original comment, I don't think this number is the number we want to accept. I think it's gotta be something that Mike has gotta suggest to us at a later date.
That we can keep it essentially.
You keep it there as a placeholder, yes, but with the understanding that we're looking for something that comes from you as a suggestion.
well, that and, duties and all those things, everybody's got a different skill set and everybody needs different support. Our administrator is gonna figure that out pretty quickly and come with a proposal, but it does need a placeholder there that shows a budget so that he can accomplish it.
And my Tech County Administrator's amount is the amount that we agreed upon. That's
Yes.
commensurate. That is the number 423 or.
Yeah, I believe so.
And that's effective September 1st, Mike?
Yeah.
So are we looking at that another contract or is this a multi-year contract? 1 year? Wait.
Yeah, well, I think it was a 3-year, if I recall.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
3, yeah.
Obviously, a review at the end of each year.
Yeah,
The compensation at the end of each year, at the end of each contract year? Or budget year, which is it?
I'd have to double check. I assumed it to be the budget year, but I can't say that.
no, but this is reflective
But this
of
is
that.
based on.
Well, it's not enough, though, that if we, October 1st, increase his second year contract. It's not going to be enough. That's my point.
But we have some, I think there's been some, I know Cornell worked with Scott on this budget. And my understanding is that has been vetted. And if it hasn't, I don't think it would be significant enough to materially alter this because we're in the budget year now. There will be some. Oh, you're saying. excuse
For
me,
next year.
For next year, yeah.
I'm saying that
I'm missing 3 months, yeah.
Yeah.
there's going to be an increase in 3, and maybe that's too insignificant for just 3 months to warrant an increase in this number. But this number's not enough. If there's an increase in the second year contract, then I gotta believe it's going to be something. So.
That's something that can be researched. I mean, we're not taking final action on this. We just don't know what to move it to at this point.
Right.
And that's my point, is that this is something that needs to be notated and looked at and thought about. Problems like talking about how much you're gonna get for a raise as a number, in July, because it becomes a firm number. I put a firm number in here in November of this year, that becomes tough to negotiate it down, it's all, but it's. And regular is Patrice, that's you in the budget, that's Patrice, Monica.
Yes.
Okay, and that's all. Hmm.
And Chuck, retirement is reflective of what?
Well, it's reflective. It's
Well, because that
commensurate.
number, it's reflective of the actual, that's why.
That's gonna be,
The trio number was 9, that's why there's a big jump there, because that percentage is based off the budget, not the actual.
well. I don't know how they computed this, but that retirement number should be as a result of,
The number above the person,
Increases from Maine State Retirement,
based on the new salaries.
yes.
okay,
That makes sense. Yeah, everything else is fairly flat.
The only other thing I want to bring up, and that might not necessarily have to do with the budget itself, but at some point we need to look at compensating Patrice for all the added work that she's been doing for the last 3 or 4 months, it seems like. So, I don't know. Just want to bring that up.
give her an attaboy, that'll be good.
What's that?
Give her an attaboy, she likes those.
I said, to me, that's something, it's something we need to address.
So everything else is pretty stable, but.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, legal fees, we've taken legal out of just about everybody's department and paid for everybody's legal fees, is that correct?
Yes,
And I don't know if it's wise for us to reduce that to 15 to. Wait a minute, no, it's been increased.
That hasn't really changed in the recent years.
No,
has it?
no, I'm sorry, I got this backwards. I thought they'd reduced it. But it's been increased, it's been doubled, and I think that's prudent. Especially if you look at year to date, I mean, the 5-year average. So it was 1,500 last year, John. And it's up to 3,000 this year, it's a 100% increase. I agree with that. I think that's prudent.
Well, and that's on the conservative side of the 5-year actual. So that is still a conservative number.
All right, let's move on to the treasurer. If there's any other questions.
This UT fee, that's just an administrative fee, Monica, that we charge them.
yes, and I had checked with Miller, but I haven't heard back from him whether there's going to be any change or not.
When you say change,
We essentially
Any-
pay her as we can. Right? Essentially, it's probably legislative, like.
Right,
what they-
That's determined, that's what he was waiting.
part of the LD, yeah.
Is I think I asked this question last year, the payment in lieu of taxes, that's from what?
Usually from either the federal funds that cover,
Okay, so that's like that's not from institutions, that's federal funds.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Must be some formula, like there is for
I don't know if
the
they,
park being in,
if they look at the mill rate and use that for calculation.
I know how it's done, with municipalities,
Mhm.
that's what, there must be some formula to determine for the county.
And does that come in one payment, Monica?
I almost think this year it did, yes.
Because that would explain year-to-date in June being 31,000.
Yes, yes.
If that's not gonna be 63,000 a year, obviously.
Well, so the reason I'm asking that question is, last year was basically budgeted that amount, but let's see.
I think you don't know what they're going to send.
Okay, that's.
So I'm guessing the 30,000 for 2023 is more in line with what they actually send for this year.
Based on the actual for this
Yes.
year.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense. Everything else is pretty straightforward there.
Now, in personal services, Monica, are you getting the 66.5 plus the 52 for 23? Or is that 52 what we had in there when we had supposedly had elected treasurer?
The 52 is less than what you had for an elected treasurer.
Well, we reduced that to 52 though in,
So it's bringing it back in line.
okay, so your total salary is the 66 plus the 52?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And Mary is the 48.5?
Yes.
Yeah, we had talked about that.
I reduced travel, I reduced training.
Excuse me, just a minute, though. I'm curious as to, no, never mind. I'm a little curious. Go ahead, Mark, I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay, I just tried to reduce in other areas where I don't see us needing a lot of travel or training.
Sorry with the copier maintenance. We're just trying to get it closer to the actual, I guess.
Yes,
Okay.
And I think there's actually a movement in another department. I can't remember exactly.
was that in the commissioners?
Yes.
Oh, well, copiers are covered through IT.
Except for this one.
But I think Cornell put money in the commissioner's budget for starting to build funds for new copiers in the future and reserves.
Actually put the same amount as last year. Well,
I guess he put it in under the treasurer. It's $1,000 in, I'm sorry, and under the treasurer equipment.
and commissioners and treasurer, yeah.
My $1,000 in equipment is I'm looking to purchase eventually new fire safe filing cabinets. Because I'm pretty sure the ones that are there are quite aged. And I think eventually they'll need to be replaced. I don't know if there's even any danger of asbestos in those. They've been there forever. So it's not something that is an immediate need, it's just trying to build.
Back up on miscellaneous. How do we avoid paying legal expenses for Dan services?
There are none.
But don't we have to,
Thanks to ARPA, we've had no TAN for a couple of years. No
and
TANs.
you anticipate that's the case next year? So why?
It's all zeros.
Interest expenses.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. Anything else there, you gentlemen?
RCC.
Oh, it's DA.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
What's next, DA?
What is BWA?
Victim Witness Advocate. Those are our folks who take care of the victims and give law enforcement. So basically, they're called trial assistants in other districts. Another district.
And that's a grant that you get from the state in support of that program.
Yes.
If you look in your expense page, Paul, you'll see that they have, we have 3 up there now, 3 GW, 2. And so that just pays a small portion of the total cost of his VWAs.
The next line, that's just payments back from where.
Are we in personnel services?
No, revenue.
Just
Still on
revenues. Oh.
Slash deferred payments.
So in revenues, the next line is deferred disposition payments. So when somebody enters a plea and we have a deferred disposition where they have to complete community service or make restitution payments or something, they get a certain amount of time to do that. And we charge them a fee per month, usually $15, to get that benefit. And at the end, their charges are either reduced or dismissed. So that's where that revenue comes from, is from people entering into these agreements.
Is there anything in particular, like why in 2022 our actuals are at almost 23,000? Like, is there something that changed that?
Well, that's an estimate. From June, it was 11,485.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I think probably it's a little bit inflated this year because the courts have kind of started getting back into process. So
Gotcha.
we're having more of these agreements getting entered.
But that's not that's for administering the agreements. That's not, you're not being or that's not against cost. That's an administrative.
It's an administrative fee that goes to the county.
And so, Paul, here we go again with these reserve transfers.
Yeah.
And what's the
So we have 4 computers in the office that are over 4 years old, and they'll need to be replaced. I was originally going to put that mine in the technology reserve account, but this is a suggestion that the better way to do it would be to add it to both the revenues from the reserve account and then add it in, I can't remember which.
It's at 10,450, right? Yeah.
This is it's a known expense. They
So-
know they're gonna make this.
So Paul, what he has is he has a reserve account, which is, doesn't indicate what it is, but it's one of his, he accounts it, his,
Yeah, it's coming in here through this revenue and
Right.
back out
right,
in the budget.
he shows the
Yeah,
expense.
makes sense.
Yep. And what's the balance of that reserve account too? Do we know? No, you obviously have at least 6,100 in the reserve account you're transferring, correct?
Yes.
So, and then how do we, so that was gonna be my question, is when you, obviously they need to replace their computers every so often. But we're funding that reserve account over time, or we should be. Where is that?
It's a G account, Paul. You won't see it in the budget, it's not about, it's a G account, equity accounts.
Right.
G, the one,
Yeah. It's,
it'd be nice to have those updated when we're doing budgets preparation, so we could see what's a G account. This is the case here where I'd like to know what DA's balance is.
On my sheet, it says $12,039.
Okay, so what's the G account number?
1-3012-50.
Okay, so if we had a G account summary, you'd see that in the DA's number, that he just listed right there, he's got $12,000. He wants to transfer 6,500 out of that,
61, yeah.
or 61, whatever it is, into his budget.
So,
So Monica, it'd be nice to have those G account summaries,
Sure.
available when we're talking.
but that G account is being socking away money every year into that.
Not unless we raise it, Paul.
It had been.
Yeah, we're not raising any money this year for the G account out
I had $2,000 in my budget.
from your reserve account.
Where?
At the end, on the last one. it was-
70-200 reserve accounts technology.
Okay. That's where it's going in that account. So that's your bank account that you're building up over time. And then it shows, that was my question. Thank you.
And that, to me, that's the way that should, because some
Yes.
departments are putting money in the reserve account they intend to spend in the same budget year. And I think that reserve money should be exactly what, should be money that they want to salt away, in other words, transferring into the G account for a later purchase.
So, but does that technology, so you're doing that, every year, so, does that keep up with it? I mean,
It has so far.
It has, okay.
Actually, it's got 12,000, there only needs 31 is a good example of how we're keeping it.
For 60.
60. Yeah, and they
At some point, I'll
created,
get that number right.
and we did create that 10-450 computer equipment line that didn't exist previously, so.
And while we're talking about reserve accounts, the 1,000 for the copier is going back into a G account. You're not going to spend that this year, right?
I don't think we
23.
Yeah, no, I don't think we need to spend that this.
So you'll reserve that at the end of 23 back into your G account. Correct, okay.
So that's how it flows. Okay, I know this is a broader question. So he's budgeting, this is a CIP. I call it CIP.
Yes,
In accounting, we're calling it reserve.
yes.
So he's funding that. When he needs to spend, it comes back into the budget as a revenue as that
Transfer, yep.
transfer, and then it gets spent in his budget.
Yes.
Hard to use you.
Well, that
Everybody does.
hasn't always been done that way. I'm pleased to
No,
see
it's-
that we're.
No, this makes perfect sense.
So that's why I'm pleased to see that we're finally doing it that way, because it really shows exactly what we're doing and how we did it.
So our training and registrations,
Yeah, the annual prosecutors conference, the admission fees for that have gone up significantly based on costs from the place that we go.
Monica, I think I asked this before, and I don't know, remember the answer, but how come some of the increases are highlighted in yellow and some aren't?
You have to ask Scott.
Well,
somebody wants
I
to
think
bring
it's
their
just where
attention to
there's a-
something new or something for us to
Yeah, I think it's just a
question.
point of review.
Yeah, like.
Well, I know it, but training went up 500 and that's not highlighted, and office went up 1,000, it is highlighted. I'm just curious as to. So it really means nothing, I guess. That doesn't, or it probably means something, but we don't know what it is.
Well, no, it's highlighted because there's comment and that makes good sense to me that number is based on, otherwise we'd be looking at 10% increase there without any explanation.
Well, yeah, but we're looking for a third on training with no explanation. I mean, so, all right.
See. Basically flat, except for the things that have been explained, things that we did.
I tried to keep this flat as possible. Of course, office supplies are
Yeah.
just continue to skyrocket. So
Well, it's all personal services and benefits, it's just really a bulk of it. 55,000, it's a bulk of it. I don't see anything else here. I think we're done. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
When we, before they leave, when we, like, we're gonna be dealing with some other in the cooperating agencies or third party that, you know, we may have questions on, you know, of folks that are department heads. Is there a mechanism to get those?
For your third time request,
Well, Danny's restorative justice, obviously, there, this is an alternative and his input might be helpful.
I guess you'd have to know that ahead of time if you thought you needed Matt or somebody or Michelle or somebody to explain more about that.
I'm happy to make myself available. If somebody just wants to call me or I
Yeah,
can.
if we have questions, you
Yep.
know, I'm not sure I will, but, you know, that's just one example. Thank you.
Yep, yep. You will.
All right. Any issues?
So we'll change our contracts or anything.
Yeah, on the revenue side,
Yeah, that just simply reflects the 3% increase and current reliable census data. Some of the towns went up, some of the towns went down, so it balanced out to be,
that number's based on.
that's based on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't get the good numbers until the beginning of the year, which was too late last year changing.
What's comp by?
So based on the union contract, the dispatchers get 12 hours of comp time for holidays, yeah. Holidays, compensated, which it's advantageous to the county for them to buy that time out versus taking it off and there's all kind of expenses for.
I didn't realize it was comp time. I had in my mind workers' comp.
Oh, no. Yeah.
That's why.
Bob, how have we avoided part-time wages in the last?
We haven't had any part-timers, basically since I took over. We had a couple of own roles that didn't really work, so we kind of took that away, and now we have, we brought Megan and Brandon on as potential part-timers, so I just wanted to add a little bit extra, so we weren't taking it out of, to reflect correctly the, they're working as part-timers, as a part-time wage.
Hopefully that's gonna help or
I
come to
hope so.
fruition.
I hope so. Not yet, but we're pretty busy there, so.
Problem is that full-time staff get first dibs.
They do, but it's just getting tougher to fill shifts right now. I mean, it's just, they're busy, getting burned out, they're really, some are, I won't say overtime hogs, but some will sign up for any open shift that's there and others. So it's been, I think we'll find, I don't expect we'll exceed this amount, but there's availability there for people to take time off, so.
Yeah, so this year you'll be under budget on that regular. Not by choice, but.
No, not by choice, but,
Yeah.
We'll be under budget on the QA side of it as well, since John's kind of double working both dispatch and QA, but I hope to get that position filled. Not that I don't like hanging out with the guys at dispatch.
Yeah, I don't. Other than expanding, the revenues through agreements, and that involves stuff on the expense side, we really don't have the capability to do that.
Really, not really go back out.
Except what we talked about, oh no, that would be next year chairs, next year's budget. Yeah.
And I do have a capital reserve account, and actually, if the money hadn't come from our money, I would have drawn that out of our.
Oh, so you are actually doing what I,
Yes.
and that's what that
That's
reserve
that
account
reserve
is.
Right, yep, and then, the money that came out of that was for our match for grant funding for one of the new constables that we bought, so that's why there was money taken out of that this year. No, we do put money aside.
Okay.
Been fortunate with grant funding to replace a bunch of equipment that we didn't have to dip into that. So we still have that going on.
So my comment was really misplaced, because you're already doing it.
So,
Just making sure.
I crossed it out.
Alright.
See much else in there, dude. What's good, Bob?
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, I don't have a list. What are you doing there? What's next? IT?
Yeah.
We do not have Chuck.
Well, we talked to Chuck last time. The only
Yeah.
reason that I think this is back here is for that, what we talked about, the server reserve thing, CIP, but
Yes.
that's the
In
only
this case,
reason
they
this
are
is back.
actually calling it a CIP. A larger project that they're looking forward to.
That's why this is here, right? Yeah. Because that did increase the technology budget by whatever that difference is,
Where's that line at though?
the budget. So all we're really here to discuss is that $35,000 increase.
I believe so. I'm sorry, I don't have.
Yeah, it's, in other words,
Oh, there it is. Sorry.
yeah,
The
Chuck
equipment
should-
question mark.
Chuck should
Yeah.
have pointed that out to me, then I would be prepared to.
yeah. Because remember last time when we looked at it, is we talked about
Yeah,
the
so
server.
start building the
Yeah.
server.
Yeah. That's why that's here.
So,
Is it the R70
oh, wait.
-200?
Yes.
Is that- yeah.
Have we discussed that with Chuck yet?
Yes,
Yes, last.
it was discussed, because his budget review was at the last meeting. And
Yeah.
then you wanted some discussion to show what his actual project plan was.
So this reflects what we already
Yes.
discussed last time?
Yeah,
Yes,
because
Okay.
remember we were talking about the server upgrade coming out of ARPA funds. And
But looking
that's gonna
forward-
come up again, because it's gotta be done every, whatever he said, 5 years or 6.
Right.
And we felt that we needed to fund that over time so that we weren't facing that big nut. You know, luckily, we were able to use ARPA funds to do it this time, but we're not gonna be so lucky next time.
Well, because my notes from the last time says that we were gonna, 7,200 was gonna be 20,000. Yours, sheet there, did you put a number in there?
Mine's showing 42.5.
Yeah, 42.5.
42,500?
Well, what was there before was 7,500.
Yeah, 75.
And I had 42.5 crossed it out for 20, I don't know why I did that, but it's, you guys show 42.5 as the number we
Yes.
agreed to last time.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Health, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna take that right out of there. Check it.
All right, so,
So we're all set with that, you see,
Yeah.
Right.
and health, which. Well,
Totally beyond our control.
I forget, do we, maybe that's the beginning, when do we determine or make the policy on what the buyouts are gonna be for healthcare? What time of year do
We don't,
I know
we
it's-
don't, we don't have a schedule
Isn't it
for
the
when we
beginning
do
of the year
that.
that we
It's
like?
usually January.
Yeah, okay, that's
Wait
what
a
I
minute.
just want to make sure. I remember just doing it, I just wasn't sure if it's part of the budget process or not.
The buyout?
Yeah, like, you know,
Yeah, but
you know, take
We
a
set
checks.
that rate.
Yeah, we set how much to them. So how
I
much-
didn't think we did that on the regular schedule. I thought periodically we looked at it, but you
Yeah, we
thought
do it every year to make sure it's matching up with what the contract is essentially. But.
Okay. Because what about the contribution from non-union employees towards the health insurance? Isn't that done annually?
I think that's at the same time. I think that's,
No, I mean, that's a number that we have to determine if we want to change it. We don't, the policy tells you right now how much they're gonna contribute, but at some point, if we want to change that number, it has to be.
Yeah, but it's based on the,
To do some digging.
yeah, there's certainly a basis for it. I don't know what the basis is.
Well, because in the union and whatnot, we annually we increase that by a certain amount. Now, I don't know if we've been following suit with non-union employees and increasing theirs.
I know when we did the renegotiate some of the contracts, we were like moving up some of their contribution because we wanted it a little bit more. What I remember is us trying to make it a little bit more in line with what the non-union folks were having to increase by. So it happened on that last contract, I think, where we.
Some union were paying less than non-union. I didn't think it was. the
Well, I
case.
don't know if it was necessarily less, but like, I know we were trying to mirror it, we changed it, but as part of our negotiations, that we changed the contribution to have it. Because we were increasing it at some point. We wanted to start reflecting that on the union side.
Well, if we thought in 2023 we were going to change that number, we should decide that this year, so it can reflect in the budget, that's all. Monica, I think it's important that you go back and perhaps try to figure out what we did, if we did last year towards non-union contributions towards the health insurance, see if we did something.
I'll take a look, yeah.
All right, so healthcare, any other questions, guys?
Well, the health insurance, the only thing to discuss is on the expenditure is that buyout. And Bill's point, we're budgeting 34.5, which is an actual, which is the same budget number that we had last year. 300, oh no, so that's in line with the actuals. For estimated actuals for 22. It's lower than the actuals for 21, so I wonder why.
Well, that number's gonna change. That number could change every week, because if you have an employee right now that's had health insurance for 5 years, and he gets married and his wife has a
Yeah.
family plan, he's
Yeah.
gonna come in and get a buyout. Well, that just changed the whole budget for the, and we couldn't have predicted that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how, you need a crystal ball to get an accurate number.
Yeah.
So I think
Best estimate.
I think probably you could go back through all these years and whatnot and say it's never fluctuated more than 10% a year or something like that. That might help you, but
Yeah, well, the budgeted average and the actual average are pretty close. And, yeah, we're talking pennies here. I'm wondering if it's even worth the effort.
remember though, for every dollar we spend on a buyout,
Yeah, we're
saving
saving
us
money.
$6.
Yeah.
So I often wondered why we don't lobby our employees to consider buyouts.
Because I don't think you can.
You can, sure. I mean, you can make sure they understand the policy is that if you qualify, here's how you qualify and so on, you know. But anyways,
Okay,
All right, now we're under reserves.
so reserves, the flow from the reserves into the budget that we just talked about are not reflected in these expenditures. Is that a correct statement?
well, this one, first of all, I've always been intrigued as to why we call this reserves.
Oh, because those, I just proved what I said wrong, because those reserves are actually in the departments. Those are the department's reserves. So what is this?
Well, that's a good question, because if we're reserving, if we're raising $20,000 for our maintenance reserve account, the building account for maintenance, why isn't it in the maintenance budget?
I don't know, I'd have to, again, I don't have this one.
And
No, building, there's no building. It's at zero.
You're saying there's no building.
At some point.
Here we go
At
again,
some
because you got a
point,
line
there's
in
20.
here that means nothing.
At some point, there was 20 grand.
Take it out.
Yeah.
So, and here is 05502. We are raising $32,708, but we're going to spend it in 23. So it's not going to get reserved to a G account. It's going to come in. It's going to be, we're going to raise it and spend it in the year that we raised it.
5, is that,
Hmm?
again, I don't have a copy of what you're looking at.
You don't?
Nope.
Why?
I don't have that updated in my book.
Well, we have group benefits. I never understood quite what that is anyways, but stable amount.
Thank you.
Basically,
But again, group benefits, even group benefits is something we're going to spend in 23, correct?
I don't know, is this putting money in reserve though for future?
That is my question, because if we're raising money, but it doesn't say what it's going into a G account. Your building account, even though there's nothing there, it notates that if we had raised 20,000, it would have gone into G311.
Because we're raising 67.7, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I would almost suspect it would just spend 67,708 in 2023, so it's not getting
Yes, it's getting spent in what we just covered,
right, but it's not going to get reserved to a G account. That's my question, that's my point, apparently. I know that 5-502 is gonna get spent in 23, that's why we're raising it. And I don't know why this isn't in, I don't know why this is titled reserves. I don't know why we have this account. Again, if we were raising money from the building account, it should be a reserve account in the maintenance budget.
Yeah, but we're not.
I know it, but if we were, it shouldn't even be in a reserve account like this. So we have two other accounts that we're raising money and spending in the same year. And why is it in a,
I don't know if Dennis could speak to that, or I don't know.
No, not Dennis.
well, it isn't Dennis, it's do you know what the grouped benefit expenditure is?
No.
I don't either. Michael, that's familiar to you? It has something to do with our insurance. And it's been explained before, I don't quite, I do understand 502. I understand, and that's a payment that's going to be made 4 times a year in 23. And so it's not gonna get reserved to a G account.
So your point is that 67,000, which is comprised by that 35 and the 32.7, is, we're funding that this year, but you're contending that that is being spent this year.
We're funding it in the same year that we're spending it.
Okay, so I get that, but I don't know where that 35, I understand where the 32.7 is, but the 35, where is that being spent?
They're gonna spend it out of a reserve account. You're looking at the expenditure account for reserve. And first of all, I don't know why they title this reserves. Because it's not a reserve account.
Why don't we get a better explanation of what
I will look into
it
it.
is?
Yep.
It sounds to me, Monica, like this.
Or do you want me to make a copy?
No,
Sounds to me like this is a miscellaneous expenditure. Although I don't think it group benefits, I think it has to do with insurance.
I think
That's an
it's
insurance issue.
I think they-
And if that's the case, shouldn't that be in our health budget? And the 502 account is something new that we've created, but we're gonna have it every year now for who knows how long. And that should, if that's a miscellaneous, I mean, that would be the only thing in here that we're raising money for. Perhaps that ought to go back into the commissioner's account or something like that. I just wish I understood more about how we got, what this reserve line for, because I don't.
Can circle back around to it.
Yeah, we just don't know where I think they're being spent, we just haven't run across them yet, that's all.
I'd like to see a recommendation, Monica, that either we do away with this account, or we find more appropriate places, or we change the name of this to something that reflects what we're really doing here. We're not reserving money.
well, I'll do some digging.
Well, and more of a general comment, I think as we move forward, Michael has a lot of experience in Trio, and I imagine this is going to, a lot of this stuff may change. As my guess is you're gonna wanna migrate this to Trio. So, and use the budgeting as opposed, this is a very elaborate spreadsheet that Scott had. So, maybe you'll wanna do the same thing, I don't know, but, a lot of these little changes, maybe just adapting the spreadsheet to this.
And could it be that this title of this account comes out of Trio?
It could be.
It's possible, but I,
Yeah.
Okay, all right, between between Mike and Monica, they're gonna figure this thing out, help us understand this better. Yeah, okay.
All right, so now we're on to third party requests. We're gonna skip first one there. Go to special children's friends.
You want to go through these in order or you?
Yeah. So I think,
So the first one is going to be 9,000.
yeah, we're just gonna skip that one for now though.
Probably well.
That's,
Thought we were going to run through.
Well, we don't have any
yeah, we're
supporting
gonna
documents
get
yet.
some of the supporting documents. That's the one we were talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so we're gonna go to special children's friends. Same request. So we don't have anybody from special children's friends here.
Oh, and, one of my criteria when I'm looking at these is, we gotta look at where the county derives its in, how the county gets money. And I sort of look at, are we asking things of our communities that they're not using? And, this is being used by, there's 35 communities, is that right? Municipalities, Bill, is that right?
Which are you looking at right now, Paul?
I'm looking at special children's friends,
Yes,
their report.
Yeah.
Their report on page,
yes,
Was that another
35 and 34.
yeah, page 2 of their report, lists, beneficiaries of
Yeah.
their services. And, it's not one or two towns, it's, yeah.
Where do you see
Just
there?
look at that second.
Page 2 of their request.
I don't even see the request.
Like this. I think
Is
it's,
it back to always?
yeah, it's not quite.
So there's 24 communities listed there. Is it 30, is it 35?
Communities?
Yeah.
Yeah, 35, 36, something.
Yeah. And that's been basically what funded is. What funded. And
Yep. And the diverse funding sources.
You know, I know I get solicited personally with one of them. driving me crazy right now is the National Police Organization. I get the calls from them and whatnot, but anyway, when you do the research, and less than 25% of their revenue goes towards the mission. And so I'm not going to give to somebody like that. And when I look at the funding for this organization, which is close to 1.4.
Yeah.
Something like that. Then I count up the number of children that were served, it's less than 150. These are just, to me, that's an awful lot of money for very few people serviced. Just,
Oh, in aggregate, you're saying?
yeah. Total operating budget is 1.4, and they only served 150 kids, less than 150 kids.
Guess I never, as I read this, I never looked at it through that lens.
You know, and the other thing I don't see, I'd like to see is how much of that $130,000, 1.379 million. What the breakdown is, how much of that is actually going towards the mission and how much of this is.
Well, so what, you're saying their expenses to benefits, because they're not showing that here.
Right.
Keep in mind, I think the, well, I mean, the state part of it is essentially Medicaid. If you look, there's
Yeah, it's all but 80,000 of it.
Yeah,
That's, you can't ascertain, you can't answer that question from this.
all right, what's your pleasure, gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, this is flat funded, which is what we're seeking to do. This is, it's benefiting, 100, I didn't add up all those numbers, Bill, but it's, you said it's about 150, that looks about right.
I think I'd look at it for our country.
Yeah, for $5,300 contribution. I think that's a positive. And this is not one that's being funded through municipal budgets, as far as I can tell from this, from their statement of finances on page 3 of their application. So in other words, communities aren't paying twice. Fundraising is significant.
I'm in favor of.
Yeah.
5,300. To At least restorative justice.
Ready, okay.
Leslie Ross is here and I see Corey.
Okay.
So I am joined by my colleague Corey. Hi, first of all, I'd like to apologize for the expenditure mess up. We were working on various drafts and just didn't you know, proofread well enough.
So what you've given us is a correction to page 5 on page 6, is that correct?
Right. There are a number of errors. Not only is the total wrong compared to what our request was, but actually if you add up what was on that page, the total is much higher. So there were a number of errors on the expenditure of funds for minimums.
Oh, just the expenditure
Right,
side
right,
on
just-
page-
just-
it does
just-
not go on page 6. Wait a second.
So,
It just goes partly onto page 6.
Right.
It's the top portion of that table. Yeah.
Right, and the breakdown as well, which is at the bottom of the preceding page.
so just to be sure we've got the right one, does the other program funding, that number change?
No,
What number changed that I can tell, so I know I'm looking at?
so the number, the request remains the same, and the number that changed was on total, the 19,200.
Did that change, or is that the new number?
No, the new number is the same one as the request, which was 19,400. But as I was mentioning, is that actually, if you add up everything in the preceding columns, it actually doesn't add up to 19,200, it adds up to like 25 or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
so it's just that whole expenditure up until other funding is has been corrected.
And do we have that? I could, oh, I got that, I'm sorry, it's right here. So, one thing I don't understand is that if I deduct out of your total funding, your in kind, which is almost 40,000, is that correct?
Oh, no, other funding, the 46,000, that's actual funding.
But only 46 of that is actual funding, the other one's in kind.
That's right.
So 46,000. So if I look at your what I'm looking at is your total operating budget is 49,000. And I'm trying to match that up with something on your available funding. I see 46, I see 85, I see 19. I'm not quite sure if I can match in my mind. If your total operating budget's 49,000 and your actual revenue, actual funding is 46, are you running at a deficit?
No, we're not running at a deficit. We're very close to the bone, but we're not running at a deficit. And the reason we're not running out of deficit is because of the enormous amount of in-kind. And this is all of our space. We do not have an office. Actually, at this point, all of our machinery, whether we're talking telephones or printers or computers, are all in-kind donations. We have a huge body of volunteers that work in our cases.
So if an in-kind saved you hypothetically $20,000, no, if they saved you 20,000, that 20,000 is not reflected in the operating budget. So in other words, so your actual dollars in expenditures in
Or about 50,000.
50,000.
Actually, our maybe actually honestly a little bit higher donations, right? Are about 50,000.
I'm talking about your operating budget.
Right, our is 50,000. But our operating budget on income, but our operating budget relies heavily on in-kind donations. And that includes various agreements we have with folks who work in other organizations who also work with us.
I think if you look under the sources and amounts for funding, if you tally that up, that would equal the 49. So if you're looking at that section, if you're wondering where that 49 comes from, if you look under sources and amounts for funding, from county, state, private, other, that is the total operating budget of 49. And the in-kind is a separate.
And I would also just like to, just why I included it in this year, I know last year, a great deal was made of the fact that we were asking for more funding. And I just want to just bring your attention to the fact that right from the beginning, we were asking for actually 25,000. So even though it was more than the previous year, and the reason we actually stayed, we kept our request at 15,000 in 2021 was because of COVID. And we were all working, first of all, both much less, and we were all feeling the financial strain of being totally shut down. But we are continuing to grow, and I also, and one really important way that we're actually a number of ways, but one that there's actually a letter of support that was included that came from the principal of Bucksport. I don't know if you've had a chance to read that. Is our expanding, if you want, our harm repair program to be an accountability and support program so that we can actually work with kids who are maybe already getting in trouble, but people are not wanting to press charges or on the way to get into trouble, just so that we can actually start working with them in a preemptive manner, which, most of our work is anyhow, but doing it in this manner before they actually even end up at a police department or at the DOC.
So with that said, I understand that schools are a big beneficiary here. Are you approaching the schools for funding?
Some of our funding is actually, yes, definitely our training. We are asking to be trained. We're asking for funding from the schools too, which is why I believe I wrote it down as.
But that's not reflected in it.
It is, at this point, we're talking $4,000 and
Under funding, the second line, under funding, school training and coaching,
it's matching training and coaching services.
that's coming from school.
Yeah, because here's one of my, I'll throw it right out, because I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, but one of my problems is on page 2, you show there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 communities that have received, these services. We're getting our funding from 35 communities or 36 or whatever it is. So why should the communities that aren't listed be supporting, because that's how we get our funding, or that's our income, why should those communities be supporting this effort when they're not the beneficiaries?
Leslie, I can take this one.
I can
So,
go ahead. Yeah.
so my contention would be, it's not that I disagree with the services, if the primary beneficiaries are schools who are asking for your services, they're the ones who should be funding it.
So the primary beneficiaries of this service are people that are involved in the Department of Corrections. And those communities that are listed are the referrals from these are where the towns of the kids are from. So this service is for any community, but in the past year, or whatever's reflected in this budget, those are the towns where the kids were from that were involved in the Department of Corrections and referred to Down East Restorative Justice. If they were from any of those 35 communities, that would be listed, but that just happens to be where they were from this year. And then not included in those towns, separate from all of that, is the work with schools, and that's listed below. And again, that is for any towns that is interested. And right now, these are the ones that we're working with. But again, this is for any community. And just like as we're getting referrals, we're writing the towns just so you all know where they're coming from. And of course, the towns with larger populations like Bucksport or Ellsworth are going to, of course, have more referrals, and more likely you're going to see those from year to year. And the smaller towns, you might see one, you might see two, you might not see.
Oh,
Yeah, so if I may just piggyback on that, last year you would have seen a slightly different lineup, though Bucksport and Ellsworth was there, but there was like Mariahville, there was,
yeah, but
actually
the list
what's,
was small.
I'm sorry?
The list was smaller. Just want to be clear about that. You're right, the towns are different. But the list was smaller.
Well, yeah, we had the pandemic too. So.
Yeah.
Right, so actually what's not here is Hancock, which, you know, there would be two, you know, in the last month. And then the other thing is, like, if we're really looking at it geographically, sometimes, so like the case might be a Bucksport case, but we will be serving people who might not be living in Bucksport, who are in Orland or who are in, you know. So that's, so also just to be clear that even though these are the numbers for a particular case in a particular town, some of the folks are actually live in other towns.
Oh, I get that, but you know, you touch on, you know, where your demand is. And my point is, I agree with that. I just think that the funding should be closer to the demand. If there's a school, just like we dealt with a school resource officer for Dedham. They want a school resource officer, so they are paying for it. Here you have schools that are asking for your services, and I'm not questioning your services at all, but to me, that's who should be funding this, not asking a school district that, for instance, isn't asking for your services, shouldn't be paying. In this scenario, coming to us for money, you're asking a school district that may not be asking for your services to pay for your services, under the premise that you could ask for our services.
Just to point out that the schools, the services that we're providing with schools is above and beyond what we're asking you all for money. That we just wanted to highlight the work we're doing, the partnerships we're building, the sustainability. Something we heard from you all last year is you wanted us to find more funding. So if you look, like that $4,000 we have in our school budget is $4,000 more than we had last year, you know, or, you know, so we're highlighting that our work at schools is expanding. They are supporting us, they are paying. But also most of our work, the majority of our work we're doing now is outside of schools. It's with the Department of Corrections. It's with youth that maybe aren't quite in, like the Department of Corrections are asking us to intervene because the kids are not in school and they are about ready to go to jail. And so they're like, can you intervene before we get involved? So a lot of these cases are, you know, so they're outside, they're actually Hancock County cases. And they would be utilizing Hancock County services because they're not affiliated with schools. But we just wanted to also highlight that, just as you're pointing out, we are building our relationships with schools, expanding this funding. You know, all my work is paid through Healthy Acadia. So with strong partnerships with other organizations, like I am able to do this work in partnership with another. So none of your funding goes towards what I'm doing. I'm just doing this. So just to know that we do hear you, and we've heard you the last few years, and we are working to expand it. We also, if you notice, we just recently received our own 501c3 status, so we are able to apply for more grants and diversify our funding. But again, the majority of our service and work is for Hancock County and the county, you know, your government entities such as the Department of Corrections and so on.
Thank you, Corey. There's another thing that I'd just also like to say, which came up last year and has come up at previous years. It's like, you know, why aren't we getting more funding from the Department of Corrections? Anyway, now we're actually working directly with the Department of Corrections. Why aren't we getting like funding directly from the DA, or why aren't we getting funding from, you know, the Department of Education? It's a really important part of restorative justice work. that it remains autonomous and separate from our partners. We have to meet requirements of the Department of Corrections. We have to, when I work with the DA and we get DA referrals, we have to meet their requirements. But it's very important that our process and how we organize our processes is entirely independent. And this is why it's important for us to also get community funding.
Well, that's my point, is this isn't community funding. This is county funding, and, you know, I would agree, I totally agree with you that it should be community funded.
But it's community.
But by coming to us, it's forced community funding. That's the point.
Except the services get used. The services get used. I don't know that there is a Hancock County town that in the last 7 years, or very few of them, that haven't actually used our service in one way or another.
That's the point. So why are you not approaching them as opposed to approaching
Because another point that we've made in the past, and is that we serve, we're the county commissioners, part of your objective is really about safe communities, restorative justice and restorative practices build safer communities. So this is where it falls well within like, you know, your mandates.
Yeah, just we're coming from different directions.
And going back to what Corey said too, we are, you know, we had to spend all this time in actually organizing ourselves as 501c3. We are now, you know, in a place where we are going to be investigating and really looking into other sources of funding.
Are you getting referrals from Hancock County, District Attorney's Office?
Yes, we are. But again, when we get referrals from district attorneys, whether they're juveniles or adults, they come under like what, you know, they're different disposition, but it's important that our process be separate. So when we get the referrals, they become our referrals. And not part of the DA's structure, not part of the court system structure.
So, in a nutshell, last year they were funded at 12,750.
I'm sorry?
No, I'm sorry, they were funded at 15,000.
At 15, however.
15,000.
Right, but however, you had agreed to 19, we had asked for 22, you had agreed to 19, the budget advisory. No, they didn't, they actually agreed to 19, but they didn't do it by supermajority. So then at a following commissioners meeting, you voted on it and 2-1 brought it back down to 50. Because there was not a supermajority, but there was much discussion over the approval of the 19.
So you asked for 19 for?
No, yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason, it's not an excuse, it's just a reason why that budget sheet was a little bit of a mess, is that we kept trying to go in there and like remove stuff.
Yeah, and then 12, just so I'm not misspeaking, I said 12,750, that was an average, so that amount is erroneous. That was my mistake.
Right. You know, and to a concern you had, Mr. Clark, about like where our funding goes in this organization, it, you know, like 95% of it goes to the services. As I said, we don't, no, I've got my own file cabinets, we use our own vehicles, we have our own computers and our own telephones. So none of this funding goes for, you know, anything but direct services.
And I'm gonna be frank, because county government, you know, a lot of people are stand up, you know, it's not like municipal government, you know, where but out of everything that we do, this is something that I get comments on. You know, in my business, I deal, you know, with police officers once in a while. And when I ask about this, they gotta tell you, they laugh. So I don't get a lot of, you know, warm and fuzzy input on this. And I wish I did. I mean, this letter of support is nice, but it's one, and I get, comments I get aren't this direction. That's why I'm being hard.
Okay, I have, what's not in this, application is 2 ongoing initiatives, one with the Bucksport Police Department and one with the Bar Harbor, MDI Police Department. Whose police chiefs are like on board, otherwise we wouldn't be having these conversations. So I'm not really sure which officers. I mean, we've had in the past letters of support from all of our JCCOs, our juvenile corrections officers in support, as well as, their supervisors. So I'm anecdotally, I'm sorry to hear this, and it would be like a great conversation to have with some of the folks that you're hearing from. But we actually, at this point, are, as I said, like I'm working on some programs both with Bucksport and with MDI Bar Harbor Police Department, so with the police chiefs.
Just out of curiosity, since we're talking about Bar Harbor and that, so why do you think that we don't see referrals from DI at all?
We've had referrals we've had big cases from MDI, just not in the last couple of years. We've had big, so things have been really difficult these last couple of years for all services. Especially when you're talking about youths. As everyone knows, there's been more, overdose deaths than there have been COVID deaths in Maine, and this has had an impact on a lot of the kids that we work with.
How much is it having buy-in from the schools? I know it's not all schools, but where's high school?
Well,
where are they at with it?
We've had, Corey can talk a little bit about some of the schools. Some of the schools came to us actually through student initiatives, which are really great. And sometimes some of the buy-in especially some of the very recent ones, and I'm thinking of Bucksport, is when the problems are just so enormous and they're really trying to figure out a different way of dealing with them. But maybe Corey can answer that question.
Yeah, and I would say that, I've been on board with Downey's Restorative Justice for 2 years now, and we've really been able to expand our work with schools. I think it's just a capacity issue too. Leslie's the only employee for Downey's Restorative Justice and is, working 30 hours a week or 32 hours a week, and just was able to move it up from 20. So I think for us, there's demand, and it's just about capacity and building those relationships. But this is increasingly something that is, so the state of Maine just mandated a restorative discipline policy, meaning schools need to have alternatives to suspension and expulsion in their discipline policies. They have to have this restorative kind of discipline policy. And so a lot of schools are reaching out for support around that. The same as the Department of Corrections has recently established a restorative practices person to oversee and support this. So this is something that, if you're not hearing it, you're going to hear about it more and more, that, the state of Maine is really pushing this. Is it's just shown to, reduce recidivism and actually just improve our communities overall. And so definitely our work is expanding, and we're at capacity as far as what we can do. And luckily Healthy Acadia has been a great partnership and allowed me to do this work with Downey's Restorative Justice, but it's going to continue to grow and grow, I believe. Yeah.
Well, that's good. But those folks should be paying for it, not the county.
Yeah, and I think his question was just curious about schools. This is separate from all that stuff you see on the budget sheet. I was just sharing about the work in schools, but this again we're not asking for you all to fund our work in schools. We're asking you all to fund the work that we're doing with the Hancock County folks.
Explain to me a little bit. I don't quite understand. What's the relationship between Healthy Acadia and restorative justice then? I'm just trying to understand.
So I actually got trained as a mentor for Downey's Restorative Justice, and then I was employed through Healthy Acadia, and my grant the funds in my grant was specifically establish restorative practices and trainings in Hancock County. So I immediately reached out to Downey's Restorative Justice and said, hey, I know you're doing this great work. I really like what you're doing. I've been a mentor. I want to do this with you and in partnership with you, rather than Healthy Acadia doing restorative work over here and Downey's restorative, just creating the collaboration and communication and just working together in that capacity. So my grant funds allow it. I'm funded through Maine Youth Action Network, which is a statewide, and Department of Education is also funding me and looking at other ways to get funded to do this work. But just because I was doing this work already and wanted to do this in collaboration, and just providing support for Downey's restorative justice. Yeah.
So is that part of the, what we're considering in kind?
Yes, that is
Okay,
part
so
of our
I'm sure I
kind,
understand.
right. And just to come back, well, why should the county, fund this? It should be the communities or individual. It's because it does affect the whole county. I come back to that whole point is that we are creating safer communities. And when, yes, we don't know where a youth is going to get in trouble or an adult is going to get in trouble, but when we hold our cases, everyone is at that table, including the neighbor down the block who can't sleep anymore because somebody, broke into their neighbor's house. And it just gives everyone who's like impacted by something a voice in both how they felt and what they would see needed to make this better. I mean, we had a case, actually, one of the letters of support, it was a connected case, it wasn't that person, but it involved some shoplifting at Walmart. And as you may know, whenever you shoplift from some of the large stores, you are actually banned for life from being able to enter the store again. And one of the folks who was also part of this case, their family shopped for their food at Walmart, and they really relied on the prices. And because of the settlement, because of the work that the youths did, and how they followed through on everything, because they were able to sit through the whole process, Walmart actually ended up lifting that no trespassing charge on that no trespassing order on this family. So, we say it's one person, but you can see how it really is, it extends way beyond one person.
Well, and I own a retail business, and it's not just big guys, the little guys are having to resort to this because it's so prevalent. And this is our only way of fighting back. And that's a coping mechanism that all businesses using right now.
What do you got?
Well, I just come back to the data, the financial data. Gentlemen, if you look at page 5 and 6
Up there.
of their presentation, the correction sheet and whatnot changes the total for their expenditures to 19,400. The next portion is that where the funding is coming from. The last portion is the in-kind. Now, it appears to me that the in-kind that you're getting avoids having to pay for that service. So it's almost like the in-kind voids a certain amount of the expenses that you'd have to pay for if somebody didn't provide that in kind. So as far as I'm concerned, because you're not listing this total, I mean, that in-kind totals $49,000, roughly. And because you're not listing that as an expense, that basically, that's a wash. What we're really looking at is the actual cost of expenditures and the actual cash you're getting in funding. And that's what bothers me, because the actual cost of an expenditures is 19.4, and your actual cash funding, your income, is 46. And I'm saying, if you only have 19,400 in expenditures, and you're getting 46,000, why are we contributing anything? I mean, why isn't there a $27,000 surplus every year, because you're only spending 19.4, but you're getting 46 in actual cash revenue?
Okay, I'm maybe it's my tablature isn't clear enough. When I say total other funding, it is not including the 19.4. Total other funding is including the $30,000 grant we get from the Department of Corrections.
Wait a minute, excuse me, just a minute. Let's back up a minute. Can you run your organization on $19,400 with in-kind? Where is the actual expenditures then?
There's a 32-hour.
Why isn't that included in your
I-
explanation?
I believe it is on the salary and fringe expenditures, program and case coordinator, portion of 32 hours a week, which increased from 20 last year. Amount asked for from commissioners decreased from 1244 from last year.
Salary and fringe on my sheet says $10,000.
That's what we're asking for right now. I'm saying last year we asked for 1244.
That's not what this financial page is meant to show. And we wanted to see how much it cost you to run your business, how much income did you have to support that business? And then in
Okay,
kind is
so-
something else, so.
So I can redo this so that I'm hearing your question, a little clearer. We've understood, and in fact, this is how we've written our last 4 or 5 grants.
And I think we've had this conversation before.
Right, we've understood expenditures to be how we're spending your funds. That's how, not how are all of our expenditures, but we understood expenditures to be, how are we going to spend those 19 for? Not how are we spending all of our funds. And
They need it.
okay, so I can do that again. So the $10,000 is a portion of the 32-hour salaried position.
Which is really,
So, okay, same conversation we had last year.
Okay, so so actually, we did have this conversation, but this wasn't clear to me. And this is my fault. It wasn't clear to me where the problem lay. And this can be actually put together fairly easily.
but your explanation really is kind of, I don't know how to say this, I don't want to disparage what you just said, but the bottom line is that you don't have a separate checkbook with 19,400 that's from the counties, and 10,000 of that is spent for salaries. I mean, out of 19,400 or 15,000 goes into one pot of gold that you have, and all your expenses are paid out of it.
Right, so I might,
Okay, so, okay, for my mind, before I even make a decision, I'd like to see how much your total operating expenses is, where your total actual cash funding comes from, so that we can see, and then we can make a decision based upon that.
okay, I again, this is a little bit clearer, but,
Well, that's wait a minute, just a minute. Gentlemen, are you opposed to them submitting that information?
No, because this, what they've submitted is just how they propose our funds be spent. So I mean, that's important, but it does not, you're right.
you want our budget sheet, which,
yeah.
Listen, what, if they submitted that said, we need 19,400 for heating fuel, that's all we're gonna spend your money for, would that make a difference in your funding? I mean, the fact that they say, well, we're gonna give $10,000 to a coordinator's role, and we're gonna give 2,800 to the facilitator's role, what's the difference? If they, instead of giving that, they're gonna give 12,400 for fuel oil to heat the building. I'm just saying that it doesn't make any difference what you do with that money. It's how much money it costs you to operate, how much revenue you have coming in, so that we can evaluate on whether or not we want to contribute based upon you, how much of your revenues going towards your mission, for example, or whatever criteria we may personally have. So I personally would like to see that information
Okay.
before we go much further.
okay.
Well, and, that may actually sway, our thinking, because I get what you're trying to do here. But, that would be very useful. And, might even address, my point of, community should be funding this as opposed to force funding through the county.
Okay, well, I can have that budget emailed, emailed either by the end of the day or by tomorrow.
We won't be taking this up again until we make a final decision on what we're gonna send to the BA's, the Budget Advisory Committee, so you have a few days to do that.
Okay, no, I mean, the information's already there, that wouldn't be a problem. I do feel we keep circling back to this thing about like it doesn't serve the county when.
Oh, I didn't say that, I don't mean, I don't take my comments to be that you're not serving the county.
So, and I guess the other thing is that just as Corey mentioned, we are now a 501c3, where we were working in this very loose partnership, but we were working with the fiscal sponsorship out of Belfast. We've already, with our contract with the DOC, raised that amount of funding that we were getting in addition to what other funding. And we're in a position now to actually really look at other sources, which we were not before. As when you're not a 501c3, there's a lot of funding that's just not simply available to you.
Just so I understand that relationship, as I understood it last year, they have the same mission. You were falling under them to provide those services here. That was the reason they were an umbrella.
Right.
And now you've done that, so you're just like they are.
Who's
Well, we're
they?
different, but,
Well,
but,
I
but,
mean,
right.
I thought it was.
Right.
Just by geography and
When you say
And-
they, who are you talking about, they?
their fiscal sponsor was, I forgot their name.
Restorative Justice Project Maine,
Yeah. Which was out of Belfast.
which is out of Belfast, and they serve
Yeah.
4 counties, but we had this, we weren't quite their 5th county, we had this.
Yeah, they just created a similar organization that provides similar services in the city.
So with updated information.
Yeah, and, you know, because last year they came back too for similar reasons. I just want to make sure that you understand what, you know, I hate to have you come back and hash this all over. You understand what our quandary is.
I hear ya. I get it.
I do,
I
yeah,
got
it actually wasn't clear, I mean, we submitted the budget, but it wasn't clear why, this wasn't working.
And maybe our application needs to change, but I think it was just a misunderstanding, but it.
And there was a question, I think that was also posed last year about, like, you know, accountability, and this is the problem if, you know, we are happy to have our books open, you know, just to say.
And, you know, something that might help, if we had recommendations from, you know, somebody like the district attorney or, you know, because I have no problem with your mission. I, you know, and there are aspects of it that I agree with, and, you know, I don't know of any that I disagree with, but there may be some. My only objection is I feel that what you said is absolutely spot on. This is a community-based thing. And the county is, by the county giving you money, we are forcing communities to give you money. That's my only objection.
I think it's just that we come back to the county because, you know, your jail, Hancock County, you know, we are working closely, like we are trying to keep people out of the Hancock County jail, right? And so we are trying to be a supplemental service to save the county money by keeping these people out of the incarceration system, which serves the whole county. So I think that's why historically we've always come to you all, because it's like we are trying to save you money by preventing these folks from ending up in your jail. And I think that, you know, now that we have more diverse funding, we can look at other sources of revenue, but I think that's why historically it's always been, hey, Hancock County, we're trying to help you, work with you to prevent these people from costing you more money in the long run, right? And so we want to provide this service up front, and just, you know, trying to see if you all value that as well. So I think that's where we're coming from. But I hear what you're saying, and I think definitely where we're expanding that. Yeah.
That would be important to know, because as I've read all through your material, I never took this as an alternative to incarceration, because many of the examples that you cite are not examples that would bring somebody to be incarcerated.
Well, do you serve adults?
We do serve adults as well.
In this list that we had, are any adults in that list of towns that you serve?
There are a couple, they're just actually very few.
Okay, so.
It's a newer program we started.
And what's not, yeah, there's stuff that's not here. We have a number of re-entry referrals, which are not mentioned here. So these are folks who are coming back into the community, and just setting up, we have a program set up so that we can discuss what they need to do in their lives so they don't end up back.
What kind of referral is that?
Re-entry, so
Re-entry, that's somebody coming out of incarceration.
And we know what recidivism rates are like, and this actually really significantly there's only so much room, right, in this application. I believe last year's, we actually had a little paragraph about how restorative justice studies have shown that it reduces recidivism rate, and it actually ends up.
Touch on it, so.
You had last year. So there was something else I was wanting to say, but.
So the adult, we struck, and Leslie knows more about this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but we struck an agreement with the DA to accept referrals for shoplifting for adults. And there's certain things that adults might get charged with that they can refer them to Guidance Restorative Justice, but working on expanding what they can refer to us, but starting kind of small, because this again is like a new program. It's happened within the last year or two. We're definitely looking to expand that work. Yep.
And none of those referrals are reflected in this document. Okay, so I will get a budget sheet.
Sounds good.
To you. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
just to be, we'll be taking this up at our last. budget workshop.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be another commissioners meeting that you'll come to, or will be only at the budget meeting? So you're not putting any forward any proposal today?
After we go through all these departments, including the third party, we'll sit down and figure out what numbers we want to send to the Budget Advisory Committee. So that is that final discussion after we.
Yeah, so we
So
don't
we
really.
review these, we don't really vote on anything. By general consensus, we'll put something together, a recommendation to the BAC, asking them for their advice. Then we take official action. And
But we probably won't review this one again until we're at the end of everything. Before, like, we are gonna send it off to the BAC,
Okay,
because we'll
and
do the other departments that are up next and do that.
Okay.
So just get it in.
then you give us a heads up of when that happens, when it does go to the next step, when you'd like us to appear.
Make sure you.
Or when-
Date.
Yeah, my guess it would be next meeting.
How many other, who else do we have left?
just the sheriff, I think is.
Yeah. So it would be our next.
Okay.
And also just a comment you said about letters, we've had two letters, we've had a letter from Matt 4 years ago, and we had a letter from Heather Staples last year. And so it's just not to ask the same folks for letters of support every year.
From the, she's from the.
Heather Staples is an ADA.
And the comment,
Thank you.
the one comment, not the one, because I've had a few others, but the comment is that why wouldn't the DA support this? Every case restorative justice handles is a case they don't.
That they don't. Yeah.
So, I mean, why, thank you very much. If I was the DA, I'd give you every case I had. Take it all. I mean,
Exactly.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Where are we then?
We are on the next.
We're on, get back extension.
Paul, I don't know if you're aware that the extension is the only third-party recipient
That we're obligated to.
that has some grounding in statute.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is that 25 cents won't get you a cup of coffee because neither one of us follow the statute. They're supposed to provide us with a budget, and we're supposed to be able to comment on that, and, but I can tell you though, from personal, every dime we give to that extension bureau is worth it. I don't have a bit of problem. Did you see an explanation for the increase though?
It's in the very first line, on the front of it.
It says it's a 6% increase, but it doesn't say why.
Lower expenses.
I don't see a reason.
It increased staffing. Significant increases in line item costs.
Okay.
Do you have anybody from the extension?
I don't believe so.
And ours is part of a match, right?
I don't know if I would
Because-
say that out loud.
Well, I was reading that, that whole, the third paragraph there.
Yeah.
For every dollar that, spends approximately $10.
And that's just,
I thought there was.
I don't think it's much of a math. I think they're basically saying that that's the way it figures out. I don't ever remember this.
But I remember there being something in statute.
I think it's that Smith-Lever Act of 1914 that they mentioned in the first paragraph.
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't tell you how much you're supposed. All right, 7% increase.
Membership includes all residents of Hancock County.
This is a 66, you don't, I mean, a 6%, you got 7%. Well, I'm willing to support that. Do what?
70,000.
Well, I mean, that gets your support, that goes 70,000. John's suggesting 70,000, Paul.
John, you're basing that on what?
Basing it on splitting the difference essentially.
Between what?
Basically splitting the difference. We're at 67.2 for.
Oh, okay.
If you guys want to do 72, it's
No, I mean,
our biggest.
they're funded in a bunch of different ways. I wonder what their other funding is. I can support your proposal.
There's a lot of financial data, and you have to study this for a while and figure out. What are we doing? Is it 70 or something?
On page 5, they do have a highlighted paragraph that says last year they actually reduced their ask. And now post-COVID, they're fully functioning and serving the residents of the county. And with increases in line item costs, this is why they're showing the increase in their request.
Oh, yeah, it's always been 73 up until 19. Went to 70 for a couple of years and 67.2. We still have them over 2,000. What's it gonna be? Huh?
That's fine, 72.
72. Okay, 72 once?
Yeah.
2 twice? It's gonna be 72.
All right. So
Soil and water,
flat
too?
asks from soil and water. Next up. And Hancock County Planning Commission. Sir, who are you here with for?
I'm here separately. I'm a housing developer that was hoping to speak with you perhaps after the meeting about ARPA funds.
Okay.
So you're saying 500 you're okay with?
Pretty much good with all of these, and they said the
Yeah.
the firefighter, it's fine, $500. So to your fire.
The soil and water one.
Yeah.
Refresh my, that's another one that's grounded in
Which one?
The
soil and water district.
No, that's purely discretion.
It is?
Yep, there's nothing in. But I'll tell you, I've worked with a couple of those gentlemen over the years and whatnot, and they really do provide a worthwhile service to the public. Anytime you see on a private road, you see a culvert being replaced, the soil and water doing that. They have this program, you know, to promote the trout and all that and whatnot, and it's difficult to get that funding, but if you get it, they do a hell of a job on those,
Yeah, and they're funded,
but for the government.
yeah, by county government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that's all they're asking, but I think considering what the work they do, I think that's well worth it. I'm surprised that volunteer firefighters aren't asking for more of an increase with everything going up the way it is, but.
Gift worse than the mouth.
Hmm?
Don't
No, don't look at gift. No.
All right, so now we're at home. Unless you have any other comments, Paul?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, now, the first thing I think we should acknowledge on Holmes' request is they entered, when we asked how much we funded in the past, they said in 21 they got $10,000 from the APA. But I think really what we're talking about is from the third-party budget. I think that's, so home co-ops never got any money from the county from the taxation.
No,
No.
all three, both of those are ARPA funds.
Yeah,
Remember, that's the first, it's 10,000
Right,
is the
and we did,
first.
right.
And our second, when we went back in.
So really, they've never gotten funded out of the third-party
That's all
thing
we're talking
before. So,
it's a new
Yes.
request.
yep, and here's a case where you're gonna let somebody new into the club.
And also, I don't believe there's an application at this time from EMDC.
Well, I think,
Or did-
Yeah, we're gonna.
I think that's
We're gonna
what
bring
came
that
in from
up.
Michael. And
Yeah.
Michael wasn't sure
We're gonna
because it was
bring it
past
up
the
later.
deadline.
Okay,
Um,
sorry.
Well, not many government entities or governmental entities are adding cooperating agencies. Most have, a lot have policies about how you become one and these folks, I mean, obviously, we funded them through ARPA funds because they're, they're basically providing homeless shelter.
Well, the only reason they got funded, it's not the only, but the primary reason they got funded was that they're a nonprofit, they lost money during COVID, and that's what the program
Yeah.
was. It had nothing to do with who they were or what their mission was. It's
true.
a nonprofit, that's the sole reason they got it. So, I guess the problem is that we have no real criteria for how new people get into become a third-party recipient, which forces us to have to evaluate each applicant's mission and so on and so forth. And I should almost have to hire a consultant to do that.
Consultant cost you more than.
Well, that's right. And I don't know what to do about it.
Well, I'm in the same quandary. They're providing a service that, sounds like is needed and, these folks are in crisis, they don't have a place to live and, but then again, I don't know, I read this one twice. Still didn't know what to do.
Well, obviously the problem's bad because COVID's made the damage worse. And then the lack of housing and everything, so it's like, I think that's one of the reasons why they've put in a request because it's become more and more of an issue. In the last 2 years, it's grown more and more. Part of me is, I'm almost more inclined for him to come back with a proposal that, because I I first tell you right up front, like, I know Tracy Hare really well, he's the executive director. So, but, to me, I'm almost more inclined to like, they're working on projects to deal with housing issues and that to me that fall under ARPA again. And to me, this is, if they have, I think they're gonna be contacting Michael, some folks that, are doing some different housing work in the county. There might be some kind of request where we might be able to help out them with that, and that, to me, that's directly related with ARPA again, because of the housing issues, and that's like in the mission statement for ARPA, which we have other things coming up with that, but I feel like money from that needs to go towards addressing some housing questions at some point, so maybe that's something Home has I know that's a mission that they're working on. I'd be more inclined to have a solid program or project from them that we would fund through ARPA funds than necessarily go into a yearly funding, but I don't know.
Well, here's one of the questions I had was, they're providing services to folks that have needs that some communities are addressing through other organizations. Okay, like, food pantry and, there's other things that, like, for instance, Bar Harbor is doing with, another entity. So I was one of my thoughts was consistent with a comment I made with Danny's restorative justice is that, the communities that are benefiting here or using most of these services, should be the ones funding it as opposed to us, sort of forcing them, communities that are using other alternatives to fund this effort. Am I making sense?
Yeah, but the only thing my thing is like, to some degree, like, any kind of taxation is forcing people, right? Like,
Yeah.
You may consider your
Yeah.
local town is forcing you, or from,
Yeah, when it's close.
they're a county. To me, it's a county.
Yeah, no, when the town is doing it, they're forcing their residents, or we're forcing, like, for instance, there's some towns we could be forcing, they're forced twice.
Gotcha.
Well, see, I consider anytime we can provide a service countywide that the people looking for, and they need, and they want, and whatnot, I don't call it forcing it down their throat.
Yeah.
But, there are causes out there that not everybody can rally behind. And that's what bothers me, is that we start charging everybody, telling everybody who they're gonna contribute to. You know what I mean? And so I still don't know how we're going to deal with worthy causes who want to be involved, who want to be included in third-party donations, because now we've just got a new food pantry starting out here in Ellsworth on the down East Highway. Who can argue against food pantries, right? So how do we say we don't want them on that third-party donation list? Well, God, there's no end to that list. If everybody wanted to get on it, who's providing what's considered worthy causes. And so, third party has always bothered me from the day I took over as county commissioner, so.
The towns, even little Swans Island does put in on a community basis, they give to quite a few. And they, each of those that are asking may get less, but they try to put into Life Flight of Maine, they get asks all the time. They may get requests all, throughout the year, and they review them every year. So the towns are putting in where they feel the money is important.
Individually, each town.
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
so if 25 out of the 36 towns want to support Life Flight and the other 11 don't, then
Right.
let's let them decide.
Yeah, and then and conversely, if we decided to do that, then this example would be forcing Swans to, or not Swans, whoever decided not to do it, to do it.
Right.
And Swans would be doing it twice.
Right.
Because I can see restorative justice there, oh, for God's sake, let us go to one source generally and get funding for 36 towns rather than have to go to 36 town meetings.
That's my point.
You know, that's a fact of life, but
So what do we want to do with this one?
I just philosophically do not want to add to the third party donations, the group. I'd like to pare it down, and we tried one year to pare it down and whatnot. Pet projects on this board and whatnot, I think we might get rid of 2.
Well, and, you know, in other counties right now, there are other counties that are saying no to all of this. You know, for some of the reasons that Monica. and I have written.
You know what I think we should do is send this along to the BAC, let them tell us what they think we ought to do. I've always said that I might be philosophically opposed to something, but if the BAC who represents the taxpayers says to us, we want to pay for the service, who are we to say different?
So if we take no action on this, does it go to BAC? We have to include.
We're going to have to finalize what we send to the BAC officially. This is all just preemptive work today, because we're gonna have to.
No, but it doesn't go to BAC unless it's in it. You know, we
We'd
can't.
we'd have to take it out.
Did all the third parties know we were bringing this up in the budget today? Just kind of curious, because, you know, that one group show up, and usually we have at least half of these people show up. Seems like.
I mean, I wasn't told that I need
I know,
to communicate with them.
I know, so it's been a,
So I,
But
but I'm kind of,
but the agenda listed all this,
the agenda list that today you were gonna review the third
yeah,
party.
did list all, it just said it's third party.
I don't know how many of these recipients look at our agenda, but shame on you for not looking at it, I guess. So I don't know, maybe gentlemen, we just leave it here, let it go to BAC, see what they feel about it.
So we have to say, put it at 20. Say leave it here.
Well, I'm just suggesting that's one thing we could do is just simply leave it in there at the 20, send it to BAC, get their opinion about. Quite honestly, I don't know how they feel about adding the third party recipients. But if they sit there and they listen to all the rhetoric that comes with third party recipients, I mean, I think the homeless shelter is a two-edged sword.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I mean, Home does a lot of really important work. So, I mean, it's no joke. I mean, if you look at their budget, they have diverse, they get training money from all different areas, they're very successful. They have plans, like I said, and we could put it in at the 20 and see where it goes. Like I said, I'm gonna personally encourage them to also see what their plans are for housing, what their plans are for affordable housing.
Well,
One of my questions would be, are they getting funding from Hancock County communities then?
They only had local of like $5,000.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, we don't know where that.
I'll tell
Probably
you,
more than about.
Paul, before you came around, there was a suggestion that gained a little bit of traction, but I don't know what happened, but is that we basically take everything out of third-party recipients except Extension and Firefighters Association. The balance of that is taken from our community benefits account. And what we do every year, before we even look at the applications for that, we set an amount that we want to expend. So if we say, okay, we're going to spend 150,000, send us your application every year, and then we'll evaluate that. But we're only going to spend 150,000, but it comes from CBA, not from taxation.
That would make sense to me.
Well,
So, yeah, you're right. I mean, we'd have to really figure out like our overall CBA, it's only the last so many years.
I know That's the downside, it's only
At
less.
some point, it's not gonna be us, but
Yeah, and then everybody,
Somebody's
hit
gonna
all of a
like-
sudden, yeah.
but there's also.
Well,
if
it's
you-
also a
if
good
you switch
reason,
it-
though, it's also a good reason for not having any more third-party recipients.
Well, the other thing is if you were to do that, but in the event, it's not part of the budget, so it's an application process. You either you're not guaranteed anything, it's just certainly you're not guaranteed here, but here it feels a lot more, like you said, it's harder to get out of the group. If you do that, like you're applying every year, sometimes you get grants, sometimes you don't, because that's what it is, it's a grant when we do it under that. So if you have,
Because what we do is we remove third-party budget, and we'd establish two more budgets, two more departments. One of them is the extension service, and one of them is the fire, the Hancock County Finance Association. So we have no more third party. And someday this board, if none of us are going to be around when that happens, when the CBA runs out, there is no third party fallback on. We either create it or it's gone. So that's for another day, but nevertheless.
possibility.
I mean, I see, well, I guess I really have to think about that one. And it makes sense to me, but I see the other side of the sword.
So we're gonna leave home in there at 20 and send it or?
I thought we were gonna talk about,
EMDC.
no, about, using ARPA.
Well, I think,
John's proposal.
well, like that one they have to actually have something on the plate to do that, so we don't know necessarily what they do. I think they might have better luck doing that, to be honest, but
Oh, you're saying that if,
to me, the whole thing
if,
is, to me, they're working on things that we could easily support
with,
ARPA funds. At least I believe that from talking with Tracy and knowing
Specific
what their missions are.
you think something would come before us before the 1st of December?
Probably not.
I know that, yeah, I'm not sure. We could keep it as it is now, we're gonna do our final vote. You know,
Because I wholeheartedly agree with you that if they fell under the provisions of APRA and we felt it was a worthy cause, that's a great place to take it. You don't put it added to taxation, so.
Yeah, I'm always against adding to third party, just because every year we're gonna get 2 or 3 more,
Well, that was Joe Brown's theory about abatements. If you don't improve it, you'll stop getting them.
I don't know, I guess I don't know where.
so with that one.
I know in municipal government, in Bar Harbor, there's town meeting, and we had a policy that says, council doesn't add any, and we flat fund them. And if you want to be, if you want to be added, and you want an increased funding, you gotta go to town meeting. And then, but did that accomplish anything? No.
You added and they
Because
increased.
what would happen, they'd pack the town meeting.
Of course.
and say,
Yep, make it look like it was a resounding community
Yeah,
support.
so-
you know.
I don't know what the answer is. I mean, Mike probably has more experience.
We've done a little bit of everything that's been mentioned here, I mean, there's been that, we tell them, no, there's nothing, this is it, you're not on. And hope they go away, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they come back the next year with another request, but most places I've been have wanted to develop some type of criteria, as you mentioned, to base it on. But it's hard to do that, obviously.
Well, has anybody ever developed any?
I'm sure we could look around and find out for you, maybe get some samples or examples, but I, off the top of my head, anybody that I've been associated with, I haven't really seen anything that, it kind of leaves it up to
The body, yeah.
voting body to make that final decision.
Well, that's exactly my experience, is that people have talked about criteria, but I've never seen it.
Well, I'm president of the Elsa Snowmobile Club. I packed this room with snowmobilers who want us to support the snowmobile club, $2,000 to $5,000 a year, because we supply a service to the recreational community, you know what I mean? So, I mean, there's so many worthwhile, entities out there, that where the hell do you draw the line, you know?
I said keep it at the 20 and see
See what the DAC says.
I can,
What are we gonna do with the DAC?
we're gonna wait till we get there.
Oh,
Details.
Well, that's the, I mean, we're sort of putting Michael in a bad position. We have a deadline and then say, well, mean anything?
Well, I'm gonna say how we put them in a bad position.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna follow up on the request.
Yeah.
And make
Just have them
it clear to them
what they're
what the
supposed to be.
parameters are supposed to be.
but I thought,
Were they the
I
ones
thought
who were
they
late last
issued they did give us their application, but it came in late or something.
Yeah, I haven't seen an application with it, and I did ask.
When you come to it, what do you mean? They realized,
So they had submitted an email, actually it was addressed to me on the 31st.
oh, I see, saying that, I'm
Saying-
sorry, we're late,
Well, they didn't even say that. They
Yeah,
said,
they
here's
said
our
that,
request
yes.
for this year, and, you know.
with no documentation.
And a little bit blurb about what they do and stuff, obviously, but not the actual questionnaire filled out with all the sporting on.
So you might be a little arrogant as far as, oh, you know who we are.
Well, they call it dues, like you do, like, they're dues.
Were they the ones who were late last year? Somebody was late last year.
I don't remember, and I don't remember that happening last year.
Dues is what they send us. They call it when they want their portion of their request, it's on a quarterly basis and they call it dues.
So if we don't pay our dues,
And then separately, we received their request. They did say it was for the year 2021. I think that's misspeaking, but they have $10,000 in there.
is that what they're asking for in 23?
I think so. I would ask for clarification because they're saying this was their request for 2021. So I think they're calling it their 2023 ask, but their wording in the letter dated August 30th
2021, yeah.
has the wrong date but it does have 10,000.
Oh, yeah, probably a form letter, they just didn't update it.
But that it's not a full application.
Yeah.
It's not a full completed application.
Have to fill out the applications, what I say, bring it up to the next meeting. All right,
You ready for my motion to adjourn?
yes,
So moved.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So what did he want?
So
We all,
I